What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Reel Me In, a movie podcast where you didn't really ask for it, but hey, we're going to give it to you anyways. This is a podcast where we talk about anything, everything, and, well, anything about movies. I'm one of your co-hosts, Chase Lee, and hey, guys, listen, if you're searching on the web for another movie podcast, and you accidentally stumbled across our house, you open up the door, and you're like, what the hell is this Reel Me In stuff? And you're really confused, you're just, like, kind of scared, kind of frightened a little bit, but you're, like, just morbidly curious. Go ahead and join the party. You know, we're all film fans here. We like to discuss movies, and hopefully we can convince you to be not only a movie fan, but a part of this, movie-loving community. We absolutely love talking about it, so hopefully you can join. But if you are new to the show, welcome. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. What we typically do is we'll go over some movie news and some movie trailers that drop throughout the week and commentate on them for you guys, and then we will review, a movie that has come out on the weekend, the Sunday that we're recording on, and of course box office results to accompany that. Sometimes we might do a blockbuster or a couple blockbusters, blockbuster and an indie, or a couple indie films, or a major indie film. We just kind of mix it all up because we don't, want to get stale for you guys and just review the big stuff and that's it. It's like, no, we'd like to do everything because we like everything on this the spectrum. That's what's really fun about that. Well, this is episode 228, and guys, this is it. We are down to this moment. We are about to talk about Avengers Infinity War. It is here. It has happened. I've seen it twice, and I'm ready to talk about it. And we're going to be doing this episode a little differently. And before I throw it over to my co-host so he can introduce himself and explain what we're doing this week, please, share this around and let people know this is the definitive movie podcast and where you get your movie news and information and just wacky antics that come out of my mouth while Joel just smacks his palm on his head. So, Joel, how are we doing this week? And this episode's a little different, right?
Yeah, so it's been interesting. It's been a good week for me. Busy, just random stuff. I revisited all of Phase 3 in the week leading up to this. And I'll get into that later, but it's been an interesting week. It's crazy. Starbucks is having a pretty rough time of it. I don't want to get into other news stories, but man, the whole expelling 2 black men thing last week, and then this week they found 126 pounds of meth in one of the trucks that was delivering.
What?
Yeah, I know. Pounds, not grams. Pounds.
That's crazy.
That's insane. I don't know what. Maybe Walter White works there. I don't know.
That's a lot of drugs, fam.
I know. It's insane. But that was basically like the most interesting thing that happened this week. It was just kind of a busy week with work and seeing Avengers and leading up to Avengers and just kind of crazy. But it's pretty good. In terms of movie news, it's been strange this week because I guess not really strange. Avengers would have swallowed everything up, so while there probably is some stuff developing that might break within the next week or month or whatever, it didn't really break this week. So, you had like Quiet Place sequel that nobody needs, Annabelle Creation sequel that nobody needs, and, the Academy changed their rules about some shortlisting. You can shortlist songs now as a branch member and all that, That stuff happened. There was a female director put onto the next Star Trek movie. She's worked in Netflix stuff a lot, but there's really nothing like big and meaty and worthy of discussion. And so we just decided, you know what, we're gonna get into a bit of a longer discussion of Avengers, and we'll get into the specifics of that once we get there, but. First, though, there are 3 pretty significant trailers, including a big blockbuster, and I will get to that one second. But first, I want to go ahead and just get out of the way the best trailer of the week, or the best trailer of those 3. I didn't really see any other trailers. But this one is called Leave No Trace. It is Deborah Granick's long-awaited follow-up to Winter's Bone, at least in terms of narrative features. I think she's done a couple of documentaries since then. But that's about it, and maybe a short film. I'm not sure, but this is the first narrative feature of hers since Winter's Bone, which really put Jennifer Lawrence on the map. And now we're going to have this young actress. I forgot her whole name, but it begins with Tomasin. I think it's like Tomasin something McKenzie, or Anyway, I think it's like three names. It also has Ben Foster. This kind of looks to be in the Captain Fantastic vibe to me, except ultra naturalistic and realistic rather than that movie, which, had some good elements, but it was a bit more of a magical realist story, kind of wacky a bit. This one looks a lot more grounded. It's about a veteran with PTSD who has kind of shut himself off in the forest with his daughter, and they're found out. That's the story of the trailer, is that they're re-entering society and all that. This movie looks absolutely fantastic. I loved every second of this trailer. I think Ben Foster looks really strong. I think the girl looks really strong. I love that we get a glimpse at Dale Dickey, who worked with Granick on Winter's Bone. She's not an actress whose name you'd recognize probably immediately, but you'd recognize her face. She shows up in a bunch of stuff, and I just love this trailer. I think it really hits all the marks, and I've heard nothing but amazing things from it. Out of, I think it was Sundance, right?
Yeah, Sundance.
I believe, yeah, Sundance, and then now it's about to be at Cannes.
Yes.
And I think it comes out in June or something. So, really, really looking forward to this. Were you as blown away as I was?
Yeah, that was a really good trailer. It kind of caught me off guard because it starts out with like you said, kind of like a Captain Fantastic vibe, and it gets into like this really kind of meaty, emotional type of material that you just don't expect. And then of course you have people like Ben Foster who elevate the movie just because we know him to be one of these like solid actors who always brings his A game, even if it's something as bad as Warcraft. He still does his thing. And I remember watching him in Hostage in 2006 with Bruce
I need to
Willis.
see that. I've always really wanted to see that movie.
Yeah, it's a psychotic role, but that was
Yeah.
the first movie I was introduced to him in, and I was like, who is this guy? And I've been a fan of him for 10 plus years, and so anything that he is in, I will watch. And I've actually never seen Winter's Bone, but I've heard great things. That's Jennifer Lawrence.
It's one of the very best movies of 2010.
Yeah, I mean,
great piece of work.
Heard nothing but great things, so I'll definitely, if I have time, I'll check it out in preparation for this. But I can't wait to see this. I love Ben Foster. The story looks really powerful and just looks like it can really touch a nerve with all types of emotions. A couple things that kind of surprised me. One, I'll get out of the way. I don't really take stock in the ratings, but this movie's rated PG. Like, it looks like a more adult film. So I'm like, what kind of kid's gonna want to see this? So
yeah, it must be one of those situations. You'd think it would at least be PG-13.
PG-13, yeah.
But I guess it must be one of those things where the MPA was just like, there's nothing serious enough. Maybe it is a serious movie, but maybe it's not so emotionally emotionally challenging, not in a qualitative way. Like, it's not an emotionally challenging movie, but nothing so like challenging of the audience's. Because you'd think it would at least be PG-13 for like mature thematic material,
yeah,
or something, some stupid thing like that they word. But yeah, it was surprising to me. I guess it's just there just might be no language. Maybe they live one of those lives where they just don't use language, so no reason to dislike that. It doesn't have to have language to be authentic.
I mean, because I welcome like family films. I welcome all that stuff that push boundaries and don't have to be like so fluffy and cute all the time, and actually like challenge kids as they watch it and really introduce them to real life scenarios and real life problems without making it so bleak. You know what I'm saying? Where they find that balance where it could be a family film but still be mature. It
must hit really like solid emotional beats that aren't bleak.
Yeah.
Because if it was genuinely bleak, I think it would be PG-13. Because I don't think that they like to ambush families with that. But it is an interesting thing, certainly. Yeah.
And I guess the other thing that kind of peeved me just a little bit, just because I know that I'm sure this actress worked her butt off and really just kind of spent a lot of time on this movie. And I don't know, I left a sour taste in my mouth when I saw the critic quote that said she's a rising star just like Jennifer Lawrence. It's like, you only said that because
Jennifer Lawrence was in Winter's Bone.
Yeah, it just I don't know. It sounded really off to me.
I'm telling you, the whole like critic quote thing that studios do. I know that you sometimes take part in it, but it's really just whoring out quotes.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's what it is. I mean, they're telling the critics to put very shocking and
Well,
hyperbolic things on here.
it seemed to undercut her work. That's what I was
Right.
getting to.
Yeah.
It's like she worked her.
It's gonna make people watch the movie thinking, oh, this is another Jennifer Lawrence
Yeah.
kind of performance, when it might not even be anything like it. I mean, it doesn't have to be.
No.
And Winter's Bone was rated R, hard R too. It has a ton of language in that movie, and so a little more adult, obviously than this movie. And so you're just gonna get ideas in people's minds to compare them, and it's definitely. I did notice that. And I was like, yeah, that's unfair. Consider her on her terms. Just to, call her a real star.
Yeah, exactly.
Or whatever.
Just
leave
say
it at that.
we see a rising star in her. That's cool. Like that's I don't have a problem with that. But when you have to add just like Jennifer Lawrence, it's like, ugh,
yeah,
why?
it's the entertainment junket nonsense that a lot of critics peddle in. And I
will say that Joel's got his his hot takes on critic quotes, but you know what? I'm still proud of my quote going in the back of Cooties, and I will stand by that because no one else liked that movie, and so the studio was like, "Oh my god, there was this kid from Texas that liked it. Please put that quote on there."
and it's fun because I work at a video rental store place, and we have 3 copies of that on DVD and 1 copy on Blu-ray.
Joel can brag to his coworkers that he
I
knows
did.
that guy.
I actually did go around and show some people just hey, this is my podcast co-host. It's pretty neat because. Now you have that in a store, in the store that I work at. It's pretty neat. So, I don't think I've seen anybody buy them. I think I saw somebody rent one time. At least since I started there. But it's not like
that's
it's
unfortunate,
not
Joel, because there's some a-hole in the back of the movie that's named Chase Lee that says the movie's pretty good. So it just kind of shocks me that no one wants to buy it.
Right. I want to see it. I still have never seen it. I know that you love it, and I love horror comedies. I've never gotten around to it. I know it's very short, so I should probably get on that. But
it's the right amount of goofy and exploitive, and I love it.
Yeah. It looks very much down my alley. Our next trailer to get it back on track is the big blockbuster of the week. Except that it's pretty easily the worst trailer of the week for me, and that's Venom. This thing looks like the safest, most unchallenging entertainment I can think of. I mean, Jurassic World looks worse, but this looks really dull. I don't know what Tom Hardy's doing. Looks like his heart is not in it. He's come up with another unreadable American accent that it seems sort of like his accent in The Drop, which worked for that character. This one, I don't know what he's doing, but it doesn't work, and he kind of seems like he wants to be anywhere else right now. The design for the Venom look is pretty neat, I suppose. It looks like something out of a body horror movie, but I really wanted this to be a body horror movie. I know it's going to be R-rated, but to me it looks like it's just going to be because maybe there's blood in the violence and a lot of language, and that doesn't really draw me in. So I don't really have any strong feelings about this, but I'm going to just hand it over to you, Chase. Were you impressed by this trailer?
No.
Okay.
the thing is, I want to see a Venom movie. I want to see them kind of push the boundaries and kind of go into that darker material. When you have characters like Venom who play off more as like an anti-hero, and then you have the villain in the movie who's Carnage, who is a serial killer, that's great. It's like it like captures like one of my favorite genres in film, which is like, kind of like this dark, almost like neo-noir type of filmmaking, and you apply that to superhero fare. It could be an interesting mix, but this trailer just looks generic as hell, and I don't know what they're doing. Like, the only thing that I got from the trailer is to like just some clarification is the Marvel logo. It said in association with Marvel.
Ooh, yeah,
and it was not the Marvel logo that we see today, because in Spider-Man Homecoming they had that extravagant Marvel logo with all the characters flying through the letters. This did not. It said in association, which means it tells me it's the kind of Sony Marvel brand and not the Disney Marvel brand, which also tells me I don't think this is a part of the Spider-Man universe. This is like an Elseworld type of thing. I could be completely wrong, but that's what I got from just that little moment in the logo. Was when it said that, it tells me, oh, this is going to be like a side thing. Now, to get to the trailer itself, it looks generic. The voice coming out of Eddie Brock's head, the actual Venom symbiote, attacking him psychologically, it sounds like Ving Rhames but deeper. And it's like, it sounds like the Arby's commercial, and it's like, I'm good. Because Ving Rhames does those commercials, and like, we have the meats. It's like, well, I guess Eddie Brock has the meats now, because that's what it sounds like. As far as the actual look of Venom, I'm actually gonna. I think it looks fine. I know Joel's a huge fan of Spider-Man 3, and Venom made his first appearance in that movie. I know people have been comparing the pictures side by side. I like the look of the Topher Grace 1 and 3, and I like the look in this one. I don't know. They do it in such a way to where it's different but familiar. It looks more terrifying, and if they're going to kind of push that R rating, I want to see a more kind of like disgusting looking Venom versus like a polished PG-13 version, like in Spider-Man 3, even though I like that version. Just tonally, it looks like they're going for the right thing, but it looked really cheap. And so when they delivered the famous suit reveal, it's like, okay, like, I get where they're going. Maybe when we see it in action, it'll be better.
Right.
But what I fear is that just from that shot alone, that Venom is going to be mostly CGI, and I want to see them use actual like practical, like a mix. Like I don't care if it's all practical. I would rather see if it's like a mix, but it looked fake, and it just didn't really come across that well. And the compositing work of the suit actually forming over his face looked really bad, and I don't know. I'm still going to see it just because I'm a sucker for anything of this nature. Joel knows that. It's the same thing with Star Wars. They could literally pinch out the worst Star Wars trailer, and he's still going to go see it. It's the same thing with these movies. So I just, as a first impression, because I told you guys this on the show, and I told Joel, it's like that first trailer gave me nothing. It was like, right, okay, cool, the Venom movie's coming out. That was a waste of a teaser. This is also a waste because it just cheapens the first one. They might as well just put this one to bed and just hype up that animated Spider-Man movie, because that's the only thing I'm excited for this year, coming out of that studio. So yeah, not impressed. Even Tom Hardy could not save this trailer.
Right. I'm gonna say something very controversial now. I just want Topher Grace back, and I know that's like in the context of Tom Hardy being in this movie is insane to some people, but I thought that Topher Grace killed it. I thought that he gave a really good performance that people think is bad for reasons I don't buy, and I just kind of want him back. Honestly, at least on the basis of how this trailer presents his performance. Maybe in the context it's good. But
I will give you this. I may have not cared for Spider-Man 3 overall, but what I can tell you that Topher Grace has over Tom Hardy, who Tom Hardy is an Oscar nominee, by the way. This is where I have over him with Topher. When I watched the Venom trailer, and Tom Hardy, first of all, can't do an English accent to save his life. When he says in the trailer, "I am a reporter, I stalk people," I never once believed that he was a reporter. At least with Topher Grace, he looked and he sounded like a reporter. So I will give them that, because Tom Hardy, like,
it looks like he should be beating down people in this trailer.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Why is
like
he
some enforcer for the mob or whatever?
Why is he a reporter? It makes no sense. He doesn't fit that job description, and Topher Grace does.
It was sort of like when he did that movie This Means War, and they were trying to sell us on the fact that he was a romantic lead.
No.
He's got this look about him, and this is not an insult, it's just an observation. He's got this look about him of being a tough guy. And he's it's just with the stare, he doesn't do well with soft stares. They're always hard stares through your soul. And something about his eyes. He's been trained, through his acting schools to act with his eyes. And if his eyes are conveying a lot of, searching, kind of examining things, it can be cold a bit, and that's the problem here. Is
Exactly.
that he doesn't seem like he's an eager journalist. He seems like he's some sort of violent enforcer.
Exactly.
Journalist. Or whatever. Somebody who's been asked to go out and enforce. It's just he's also been in interviews before, and he's not a super interview. He's not some person who seems to enjoy interviewing, and so being on the other end of it, it seems like he does, his heart isn't in it, honestly. And so I
just think it's funny, like in a superhero trailer, that was the one thing that made me the most kind of angry, was the fact that he doesn't fit his job description.
Right. It's crazy, but yeah, it's weird. So we have a great trailer and we have a bad trailer, and now we have a pretty good trailer. This one is called Woman Walks Ahead. It's the new film from A24, but it's a partnership with DirecTV, which gives me pause. But this one stars Jessica Chastain as a painter who has been asked to travel from New York into an Indian reservation to paint Chief Sitting Bull, played by Michael Greyeyes. And she happens to arrive in the midst of a conflict with the, I guess, former leader of was it the 7th? He called it something. The 7th Infantry, or anyway, some sort of military conflict where the other side, the leader is played by Sam Rockwell, fresh off of his Oscar win. And I actually think this looks pretty good. It looks pretty safe and traditional in terms of how the story is going to be told, but I like the story. I think that this is one of those things where the story is probably going to, aside from the fact that they obviously had to match a lot of period details, and they have good actors in this movie, I think it's mostly going to be about how the fact that the story is being told. And I think it's a pretty appealing story. I like the name of the movie, where it's probably going to be the name that the Native Americans give her. Mm-hmm. Woman Walks Ahead. It's kind of fits. I liked this trailer. Nothing about it really blew me away, but it looks like a solid flick. So
I agree.
Yeah.
It looks like the whole time I was watching it, it reminded me of, and this is not a knock on this movie, because this movie I'm about to say, just from the looks of this movie, looked a lot better, but this looks like a less grittier, and kind of stylistic version of Hostels. And because it almost deals with like the same stuff where, like, Christian Bale has to escort someone through pretty testy lands, and you get people coming after him and stuff. It's almost like the same thing, and so it kind of had that Hostels vibe, and that's maybe just because I just saw it 3 months ago, but it looks solid, and it kind of has like that Hostels vibe where it has wonderful cinematography, wonderful solid actors, doing a story that kind of resonates with our divisive times that we live in, but also capture something that actually happened. It looks solid. To have really nothing more to say.
I mean, the only other thing is whatever Jessica Chastain's doing with the accent. I don't know what that is, but
that's kind of strange.
Yeah, it's a little strange, but that's my only little caveat.
We'll probably see it too, because it's A24.
Yeah, if not through screening, then maybe screener.
Yeah,
because it's DirecTV. So, it'll be interesting to see how this one is. All right, guys, that's pretty much it. It's very quick this week. We're gonna get straight into it. So, this is how the Avengers thing is gonna work. This movie is an interesting case of one that has so much going on. And so much that's going on is important that Chase and I discussed it, and we feel that in some way this needs to have a spoiler conversation. So we're not going to do that right now. We're going to review it kind of generically right now. This is the thing that you can listen to if you have not seen the movie yet. If you haven't seen the movie yet and you are allergic to spoilers, just going to say that the second half, and what Chase will do is provide the timestamp in the description below for you to understand that this is when our spoiler conversation starts, so you can skip to the end or whatever.
Well, and also I will give you guys like a good 10 seconds. Like I'll be like, all right, this is where we're gonna cut and talk about the stuff, and we're gonna count down 3, 2, 1, and as soon as we start talking, you've been warned. So we're letting you guys know we will talk about it in general terms, grade it, and then we're gonna go into the spoilers because they have to be discussed. This is such a dense movie that works on such an epic and ballsy level that it would be a disservice to you guys if Joel and I were just like, well, a lot of this happens, a lot of that happens, kind of basic, kind of cool. This was cool, that was not. Okay, great. It's like, no, because there's a lot of stuff that really works, a lot of stuff that's kind of wish they might have done differently, but it needs to go into depth.
Yeah, exactly. And so, kind of, we'll give you the warning, ahead of time. The only way that you can hear spoilers is if you foolishly wait through the 10 seconds and then keep going and then complain to us, because that would have been your action. Just saying. So we are going to give you a fair warning once it comes. But right now,
Joel and I are also confident that our wonderful, beautiful, talented listeners out there have already seen the movie. So
yes.
you guys are probably.
I will just say this, and this is going to be a little, I guess, a nipple tease for Chase, who I made him not look at the box office this week. I literally texted him while he was seeing it a second time today. Don't look at the box office, because as he will discover, we're gonna probably be pretty hard pressed to find somebody who's listening to this episode who didn't see the movie. Let's just say that across the world, I should say. So, all right. So let's get into this. I will kind of tell you what the movie's about in very general terms, and then I'll add on later in our spoiler section. But this is, of course, the 19th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It comes from directors Anthony and Joe Russo, who previously brought us the Winter Soldier and Civil War sequels to Captain America. And in this one, Thanos, played by a motion-captured Josh Brolin, is after the remaining Infinity Stones. This is where I'm going to pause to give everybody a reminder of what the Infinity Stones were. So you have the Space Stone, which is a blue, and that one was the main quarry in the first Avengers movie. It was also featured heavily in Captain America: The First Avenger. It was the stone that Red Skull was after, and then Loki was also after it.
It was known as the Tesseract.
Yeah, known as the Tesseract. It was in I think actually the Tesseract is what you call the square, the cube that it was in. And then you had the Reality Stone, which was also called Ether. That one was featured in Thor: The Dark World. Malekith was after that, or as I called him a few weeks ago, Maleficent. And then you had, I'm trying to think through, because there are a lot of stones.
You have the Power Orb, which is on
yes.
Which was introduced in Guardians.
Guardians of the Galaxy. Yes. Ronan the Accuser was after that one. That one is the one is my least favorite one of the stones, because it's the one with the most generic power. It literally is power, and it's kind of just general power, which
basically
dumb.
Like. The way the collector said was, if you touch something, it explodes. Like that's it.
Which is the most boring thing to have. So, and then you had the Mind Stone,
yes,
which powered Loki's scepter and was attached to Vision's head. Vision is the android, part Jarvis, part robot, part
Ultron, part Tony.
Part
Bruce. It's part everyone Bruce, that created
part
him.
Tony.
Yeah.
And it was grafted onto his forehead, so that's where it is at the beginning of the story. And then what was the other one? That was four, right?
The Time Stone. Is around,
right. The Time
Doctor
Stone.
Strange's neck.
Around his neck, because he's protecting that. And then the Soul Stone, which factors into this movie. I won't say how, but that's the sixth one. And that one, it doesn't really tell us what that stone does. It tells us how it can be gotten, but we don't really know much about that stone yet. In any case, Thanos is after all of these, And so there are basically, I'd say on balance, about three and a half storylines going on here. The half a storyline kind of happens at the beginning of the movie. It opens probably about 5 or 10 minutes after the close of the mid-credit scene of Thor Ragnarok, in which all of the people of Asgard have been put onto this spaceship after Asgard's destruction following the conflict with Hela. And so then Thanos' ship intervenes, and so as people will remember, Thor and the Hulk were on this ship. The Hulk is transported to Earth for after, well, I actually can't say that, so I'll just say that he's transported to Earth kind of in the midst of all this fighting. Thor, the ship is destroyed and Thor is cast out into space, and he is rescued by the Guardians of the Galaxy, who hear the distress call and come to rescue him, and they have determined that Thanos' next target will be the Reality Stone, which has been given to the Collector, who was the character played by Benicio del Toro, featured in Guardians of the Galaxy. And so they go off to try to figure out a way to delay that happening. And they kind of split up. So you have some of the Guardians have gone on to figure out a way to defeat Thanos. Some of them have gone on to try to literally stop him from getting the stone. And then when Hulk goes to Earth, he's transformed back into Bruce Banner. And Bruce tells Doctor Strange, he's literally transported right into the stairway of the Sanctum Sanctorum, or Sanctorum Sanctum, whatever it's called.
Just to let you guys know that if you think Joel is going too far, telling you guys how to set up, or the storylines that are being set up, and consider that spoilers, just know this: we're trying to give you guys context into the storylines that are taking place. We're not going to tell you the in depth of what happens, but we have to tell you what sets off the missions of these Avengers, because the Avengers films that we've seen beforehand, they're all together. This is the first time where they've been separated, and this is how they kind of go about the movie. And also, just a second thing, everything that he's described right now, they're in the trailers.
Yeah. There are no spoilers that I'm giving here. I'm really trying to, as you guys heard, it's a bit of a challenge in the non-spoiler section to not go into spoilers. But yeah, in any case, Bruce meets up with Doctor Strange. They recruit Tony, who is trying to live his life without being Iron Man, and also Peter Parker, who happens to be on a school field trip. When Thanos sends his children, they're so-called children, not actual children, but his what are they? Yeah, there are four of them, right? Four children. I think he sends two of them to Earth to try to steal back the Time Stone from around Doctor Strange's neck, and so they all team up to fight. And then elsewhere, you have Vision, and who's played by Paul Bettany, and Scarlet Witch, played by Elizabeth Olsen. They have gone into hiding in Scotland and are tracked there by the two other children of Thanos and saved by the former Captain America, Steve Rogers, played, of course, by Chris Evans, and, alongside Sam Wilson and Natasha Romanoff, played by Anthony Mackie and Scarlett Johansson. And obviously this is a pretty big cast. There's a lot of characters. There's a lot of plot. The only thing I'm going to tell you about the second half right now is that it all comes to a head in a big battle in Wakanda, as Black Panther, played by Chadwick Boseman, acts as general to a giant army fighting against Thanos' army of mindless monsters. So that's pretty much the most basic explanation of this movie that I can give you. And all right, so here's my anticipation level for this. And this actually kind of goes a little farther back than I usually start with these movies. But you know, 10 years ago next week, I went and saw Iron Man, loved it. I think I've been up and down on the movie throughout the years, but my recent revisit of the whole franchise, I love it. It's a great movie. I think The Incredible Hulk is pretty weak. It's my least favorite of the whole franchise so far. Iron Man 2 is a lot of fun. It's a downright comedy. It's a sarcastic comedy. It's really good about really like egotistical people. Love that. Thor is a lot of fun. I think Kenneth Branagh is a great fit for that material. Much more than the first sequel, which kind of took a more generic approach to it. Captain America: The First Avengers, pretty good. I like that one, and I love the sequels. The first Avengers is great, So I've been mostly a fan of these. I think that they've stumbled a few times, most notably with, for me, Avengers: Age of Ultron kind of is flat. I know that it's not for Chase, but for me it's kind of flat. Iron Man 3 and Thor: The Dark World being the 2013 movies, I think that they both stumbled a bit, and obviously I already said, wasn't a huge fan of The Incredible Hulk, but almost pretty much every movie has worked. I think that they've only stumbled those, 4 times, and I think that it's, revisiting Phase 3 in particular has been eye-opening, because I think that taking Phase 3 on its own, particularly because Ike Perlmutter left the whole setup with Kevin Feige around the time that they were making Avengers and Ant-Man. I think that once Civil War came and, onward, just Phase 3 has been a series of one outstanding movie after the next. Like, Civil War, great movie. I actually just watched that one again yesterday with my parents, and so that was my second viewing, like, in the last month or so. That was third viewing overall, and it's a great movie. Just a great way to introduce, interpersonal drama and conflict into the group for the first time, because they hadn't really done that yet. It's a great way to do that. And then Doctor Strange is fantastic, has some of the best, like, intimate character beats of the franchise, certainly of the standalones. Has a great, clever finale with the both the reversal of time and in one of the action scenes. In fact, using the reversal of time as a backdrop to action, and then also the I've Come to Bargain scene. Great stuff. Guardians 2, really great emotional core. Terrific performance from Michael Rooker, who should have been nominated for Best Supporting Actor last year, and just a great entertainment. Spider-Man: Homecoming, I reviewed it on the show. I reviewed all 3 of last year's on the show, and I think that they're all outstanding, especially Thor Ragnarok on second viewing was crazy good. And Black Panther, reviewed it earlier this year. It's great entertainment. So I just loved Phase 3, and so coming up to Infinity War, I was pretty hyped. Guys, this movie meets every inch of that hype. I think that this movie is the best movie in the MCU.
Whoa. Hold on, Joseph. You said not even a year ago that Spider-Man Homecoming was the best one. And
right.
Now you're saying that something has already dethroned it.
It's actually, honestly, it's pretty close. But I watched, I watched Spider-Man again on Thursday before I saw this one. And I still think that movie is outstanding. I think it boasts one of the best villains in the franchise. And I think that it's a great mesh of high school humor with, cliffhanger action that is always, precisely and really well staged. And it's close. They're both outstanding movies. But this one, man, my heart has to go with this one. Because it was broken like 17 times across the different points of the plot. And I mean, it knocks it out of the park. It could have gone so wrong. And I think we all need to acknowledge that this movie could have gone so wrong. So many characters, so many plot lines, so many story beats, so many action sequences, because this movie is almost completely action scenes, and it totally nails it throughout the entire thing. I can't think of any problems that are like that have any sort of really like remarkable standing for me. Like they don't register. They're quibbles. It's is there too much going on? Maybe, but it doesn't feel like there's too much going on because of how they edited it together. For instance, that's just one thing, and I just love this movie. So, Chase, I know that you weren't at all excited about this. I know that this was you were dreading this the most this year. But yeah, I'm just kidding. Let us know your initial thoughts.
Yeah, I have a confession. Joel's completely right. I was looking forward to Kings more than this movie, and Kings is such a masterpiece of a film with Halle Berry and Daniel Craig. Go check out my review on my channel. I think you'll be really surprised. Guys, listen. I've been waiting 10 years for this movie. I've invested time, blood, sweat, and tears, a lot of money, and a lot of paying attention to. This is probably the most effort I've ever put into any franchise. I know the ins and outs of it. I have rewatched them numerous times. I own all of them. I love the universe that they build. It's the thing that I have grasped onto. It hasn't been Star Wars. It hasn't been, any other franchise. It has been this one. And I started when I was 18. So, as the years have progressed, and I've rewatched all of them with my girlfriend, and I can tell you right now, not all of them are, good or great movies. Some of them are just fine. And, I have yet to see a truly awful one. Just to kind of quickly go through them all, Phase 1 was littered with some good ones. The weak one for me, or weaker one, is Iron Man 2. It's not as bad as I thought it was when I watched it back in the day, but it's still not my particular favorite. The first Thor is fine. Captain America is where I kind of go to the most. I like, his setup in the movie even more than the first Iron Man, which is typically most people's favorite, which is understandable. Then you get into Phase 2, and then Iron Man 3 works fine, even with the weirdo twist. Thor: The Dark World is fine. Once again, it's passable, but I do think the one of the deaths in that movie does help that movie quite a bit. And then we get into this weird kind of shift where we have Winter Soldier, and it's this really grounded spy thriller. Then we have Guardians of the Galaxy, which is a really kind of beautiful, weird, quirky James Gunn space movie. And then we get into stuff like Age of Ultron, which was so radically different from the first Avengers that I liked it. I liked the fact that they went kind of ambitious and kind of ballsy in such a weird direction that I enjoyed it quite a bit, and I actually like it more than the first Avengers. Then we switch gears, and then we have the Ant-Mans, and that's it plays out like a really great heist comedy. And then we get into Civil War, which is a really epic drama. And then we get into some of the weird stuff with Doctor Strange, and then that one's good. Thor Ragnarok, good. Guardians 2, great, and Spider-Man, great. It's these last 6 films, even Black Panther, which I know I only gave a B, but I still think it's a good movie. It's these past 6 or so have just been knocking them one by one out of the ballpark. It's just been really impressive to see them kind of mature as a franchise from where they started. Now, I do have my nitpicks, with some of them, and some of them involve some of the same mistakes that Marvel does over and over again. So I'm not saying this franchise is perfect. And that's the one thing that people, because I just been reading all these reviews online, and this movie kind of reminds me of The Last Jedi in terms of people are either going to love it or hate it. It's kind of impressive that this movie is triggering that response again. And some of the people's, kind of points are just kind of weird, but I mean, we'll get into that in the spoiler stuff. But, I just wanted to watch another good installment. I could care less if, there were problems with it. I just want another good overall installment because I view this franchise as a TV show. I view it as something that I look forward to every single installment or episode, if you will. It just reminds me of like a really well done TV show that has CGI and production design that can, equivocate to a cinema-like experience. That's what I've always viewed this franchise as. So, obviously watching the trailers, building up to this, I told Joel, told you guys, the trailers are great. They get me hyped up for it. It's like, cool. I like the look of Thanos. In the first Avengers, when he's introduced in the post-credit scene, kind of looks a little funky with the CGI and the weirdo, like, neon purple face. And then, of course, he's got his kind of little meteor role in Guardians 1, where we get to see, like, how threatening he can be. And then, of course, we see the post-credit scene of Age of Ultron, and we're like, okay, I'm tired of it. I just want to see this. And so now it's finally here. We get to see what Thanos has been hunting down, why this glove is so important, why the stones are so important. And so I've seen this twice. And I can tell you right now, I don't know my top 5 out of the 19, but I can tell you that this has a strong possibility of being in there as one of my favorite ones of this entire universe. This to me, because I know a lot of, like, I'm going to get to the problems that people have with this movie, and hopefully Joel and I can rebuttal a little bit, because I've seen the same thing over and over again in terms of the flaws with this movie. And so I can tell you, first time I watched it purely as a fan. Second time, I went in there and I examined it. So I can tell you guys in a very calm manner what works about this movie and what doesn't. And I want to be completely fair, but I'm with Joel in this one. I love this one. I love this movie. And the second time I watched it, it got better. Because I noticed little things here and there that was like, oh, wow, that was really smart to do. And how they focused on certain characters more than others, and what their whole point was. And hell, even my girlfriend has a really insane theory as to how Avengers 4 can kind of carry on after the epic finale that is the third one, and I will reveal that on air in the spoiler section. Hopefully, Joel, I want to get his take on it, but we'll get there. But yeah.
I have my own really crazy theory that I'll give too. So.
Exactly, like we've got it down. But anyways, initial thoughts, all that stuff, and just watching it twice, and telling you guys that I love it. I don't like to just give out high grades to movies if they don't deserve them. But as Joel pointed out, when we were reviewing You Were Never Really Here, you just know. Like, you sit in that theater and you just know what you watched is an epic spectacle for the ages within the superhero genre. Like, both times, I'm not even, like, usually when I watch a superhero movie, people will clap at the end of the movie. People will talk about it in their seats. They'll murmur stuff, and they're like, man, that was really cool. Did you like that? Or whatever. It's a nice communal experience. Both times I watched this movie, I haven't seen this reaction to a superhero movie maybe since Logan, where at the end of the movie, people did not talk. After the credits rolled and we saw the post-credit scene, people got up and left, and people did not even talk in the hallways. Like, that's how potent this movie was. And it happened both times. So I cannot stress this enough. It's not a perfect movie. There are things I wish they could have done maybe a little differently. But for the most part, this was well worth the wait. And I think that's the best way to summarize this movie.
Yeah. It's something else. So let's get into the specifics, the nitpicks that we have. So for me, all right, I do think that there's a little too much going on. At least it sets up a little too much. I mean, it's a lot of plot to follow. I'll get into why I think that isn't a huge problem at the end of the day in my positives, because I think it handles it pretty well. But just in terms of giving us stuff to work with, I think it throws a little too much at the wall, if you will, to see what will stick. Um, trying to think. Well, honestly, most of the performances work for me. I think that everybody's pretty on target in this movie, but Peter Dinklage comes in as, I guess we'll call him a dwarf. Um, and I don't know what he's doing with that performance, but it's kind of embarrassing to watch. And then, it's weird because it kind of leaves some of the characters to be very, very minor characters. So, like, Black Panther shows up to be a general, and that's literally it. He barely has any dialogue. We get a little more time with Shuri, actually, his sister, and um, in any case, so I think that it can kind of shove some characters into the background. Uh, Let me think. So, some of the seams of the editing show. I mean, it is very expertly, weaving in and out of the storylines, but sometimes it does feel like it's just a lot for the editors to handle. Again, that's kind of tied to the whole "it gives us too much to work with" idea, but it can do that. I think that the seams sometimes show, some of the, getting into the nitpicky stuff, some of the green screen work on Titan and on the non-human planets. They could have tied that up a little bit better, but that's kind of been a consistent problem with this franchise. So I'm not hugely surprised. With the exceptions of stuff like Thor and Guardians, I think that they've been pretty consistent on those. But with the other movies, just mixing the backdrops like that has been a bit of a problem. And let me think. That's it. That's it for me. That's all the things that I can think of.
Yeah,
Really.
I'm kind of along the lines of you. I think the biggest, not problem, but just more of a story issue. Because I totally agree with Joel. Like, it could seem very overwhelming to follow this movie. There is a lot going on. And my number one goal for my second viewing was to really concentrate on the editing and the flow of the movie, and if it actually works, bouncing between all these storylines. And actually, for the most part, it works. I actually don't have a problem with the actual editing of the story that is presented with the storylines, because when I watched it a second time, I realized that it molded a little bit more cohesively than I witnessed the first time. My big issue is giving certain characters more or less screen time. What I found interesting was that most of the space stuff was concentrated on more than the ground stuff. Everything that had to do with ground characters on Earth, and this is not a spoiler because this is in the trailers, but like when Cap shows up, and Black Widow and Falcon, and even Black Panther, they are present, sure, but they don't really have much to do. And it was kind of weird considering that, Cap is like one of the original three. And it seemed like they could have done a little bit more, not with the overall storyline, but just maybe a couple more scenes peppered in there just to kind of maybe catch up on what's been going on, or maybe, show a little bit more of Wakanda and Black Panther. It's just because Joel's right. I mean, Black Panther is basically just to serve there for the army. At the very end, what you've seen in the trailers with that battle there. So I like the scenes they were in with the fanboy in me. But if we want to look at it as critics and technically, I do believe the ground characters were shortchanged way more than the space characters. I'm not saying that the space characters were, they were more important, they needed more screen time. Everyone was important in this movie. But if you want, because the main word that Thanos uses in the movie is balance. And that's kind of relevant to this movie and how it's handled is, does this movie have the right balance? And I would tell you, 95% of the time it does. But I do wish they would have had maybe one or two more scenes with Cap or Black Panther and we'll probably see that in the deleted scenes, and maybe they cut it out for a reason. I have no clue. That's why they're deleted scenes. But as it was presented for a 2.5 hour long movie, pretty much, I think it works, like I said, 95% of the time. And all the space stuff I thought was actually edited better than the ground stuff in terms of bouncing back and forth. So it worked on that front. Little things, acting-wise, I didn't really have a problem with Joel's nitpicks on the acting. I think everyone did actually either a good job or a great job, and there were a couple of standout people.
I loved everybody. I'm just saying that I think Peter Dinklage comes in for this appearance that is absolutely like flabbergasting. I just don't know what that performance was. That's the problem.
That's understandable.
I think literally everybody else is good.
That didn't bother me. I was just kind of like, okay, cool. He's here for exposition, whatever. But I like that mission so much to where like that didn't really bother me. And then of course CGI stuff. Joel is also correct that especially with Black Panther. And this is one of the biggest things I railed that movie on, was that some of that green screen work and CGI was really bad. And in this one, it's not bad, but it is noticeable. There are a couple shots, especially at the very beginning, with like Iron Man and Spider-Man. They looked too CGI, to where like I am fully aware that when Tom Holland is in the suit, flipping around, doing stuff, he's most likely going to be CGI. That's not a problem, but you need to polish it to a point where I can believe that is still him in the suit. There were some shots in the beginning that looked just really video gamey, and I was like, oh no, they're kind of dipping their toe into that. I was almost having like Steppenwolf, like PTSD flashbacks, and I was like, oh no, we're not doing that again. So it was just a couple shots, and maybe that was because this particular scene I'm talking about, and Joel knows what I'm alluding to, it happens in the daylight, and maybe that's just more apparent when it happens in day scenes versus night scenes. But it was just something to point out. A couple of weird things in terms of cities. Without spoiling much, I will just say when characters are walking around cities, or when something is happening action-wise in a city, it seemed like there was no one around. It seemed like there were no extra. Yeah, I was just like, that's kind of weird.
They're in New York. It does. Sometimes
it was New York, and I will say a secret location on which a bunch of them kind of come together. Where even the second time it bothered me, I was like, why is there no one walking in the streets? Like it was just very weird. So that was just more of a continuity thing, and more Anthony and Joe Russo planting more extras and scenes. That's just a minor mistake. That's not something where I go, well, now the movie just sucks. It's like, no, I'm just pointing that out. And also, I guess the last thing to kind of cap it off is the post-credit scene. I thought it was a little underwhelming. They could have shown a little bit more. And also, I didn't like the way they handled a certain character saying a certain line, because it turned into a comedy. And for what was happening, I was like, no, this is pretty dire. Because my audience was laughing, and I was like, no. So I kind of wish they would have handled the post-credit scene a little better. It started out great, and then it kind of whimpered out, and I was like, you could have gave us a little bit more. Come on, Marvel. I know how you play this game. So other than that, yeah, I love pretty much everything else, man. It's great. So I guess jumping into the positives, it's really kind of hard to kind of whittle it down into what I like the most. So I think I'll just go by section and start with like the directing, because the one thing I will say, and this isn't like a negative, but the one thing I will say about the actual story, it is a very basic story. There's really nothing to it until it gets to certain character arcs and action set pieces. Like, that's where the movie shines. It's not like, Thanos getting the stones is just some magnificent thing. We knew this was going to happen. So the overall story is kind of basic, but I do like how, they handle certain storylines with certain Avengers, and coming together, and balancing humor and drama and all that stuff, and the action set pieces, and that goes to the directing. That's why the writing is not really not much until the very end, but I think for the most part the directing is where it shines here, because what the Russo brothers did was able to balance all these storylines, which I thought for the most part worked very well, balance all these characters to where they have their moments, they have their purpose to the story, they have the balance of one-liners that work, pretty well for the most part. I actually think the humor in this, in regards to certain characters, actually works quite well. And then Marvel is really good at flipping you on a dime to where like they'll tell a joke and then immediately go into something serious and you believe every single word of it. And that has to do with the overall direction of the Russo brothers and making you feel every single emotion, pinpointing those things out so you can have this complete experience, not just feel like one was balanced over the other. So I thought the direction of this was overall balanced in terms of a story, story-wise, arc-wise, and humor and drama. And to go into the action sequences, they were fun to watch. Like that, the last battle at the end was pretty amazing to witness, because it does involve a lot of background extra work and directing the actors, the main actors, and of course the CGI choreography. It was impressive stuff, man. I was pretty enthralled, because on a basic entertainment level, this works. It's like pure popcorn fun on that level with the action, and it just comes at you at 1,000 miles an hour, and it's really great. It's overwhelming on your senses, like excitement wise and devastation wise. Because there are actual stakes in this movie, and I really appreciate that. So, yeah, so the directing, great. So we will talk about it in the spoiler section, but I will say that the ending to this movie was unexpected, caught me off guard, and leaves me in devastation to where I was like, what just happened? I felt like, my girlfriend put it appropriately, it felt like we lost a child. And it was that, like, kind of a hard blow to the stomach. And so it was a very bold, brave ending that was like, you know what? That's really cool. They're taking risks, and I really enjoyed it. It's kind of like how I felt, like, once again, correlating to the Last Jedi stuff. It's like that movie took a lot of bold, risky things, and I enjoyed it. And I can appreciate ambition. If it doesn't work, I'll call it out, but I think it works in this one. It's a type of ending that will leave you satisfied and devastated and curious at the same time as to what is going to happen in Avengers 4. And I think that was a correct move on the Russo brothers, and a correct move on Disney to just let them do it, and they went for it. I guess going into the acting now, everyone does a fantastic job once again reprising as their characters and showing a little bit more depth than what we're used to. A couple that stand out to me personally, because I know a lot of people are going to have their particular favorites, are Josh Brolin as Thanos, Chris Hemsworth as Thor, and Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. I believe those are the kind of stars for me. And I'll get into their specifics in just a second, but I want to quickly mention the actors that played the Black Order, Thanos' children. Oh man, good stuff. I really like,
including Carrie Coon.
Yes.
She plays what's her name? Proxima Midnight. Yeah.
Yes, and she
the only female present.
Yeah, the only female in Thanos' children. My favorite one was actually Ebony Maw.
Yeah,
that was such a great character, and the motion capture work on that was just spectacular, and the way the actor kind of like moved almost like a snake, it was wonderful.
Tom Von Laylor, he basically kind of plays him like he's an upstanding member of British society in terms of the accent that he's got going.
Yeah, it's creepy.
It's crazy, weird, creepy. The I'm sorry, I'm interjecting here, but the sort of the casual nature of how he talked was absolutely the creepiest thing.
He was casual, and he was like, I'm going to follow through my plans and annihilate everyone. It's like, oh my God, like this guy's serious. No, he was probably my favorite Black Order member, and I really appreciate that. But to go back to my three main ones that stand out, which is ironically two of the three originating members, they actually showed way more depth in this one than I ever thought they could ever stretch. Because when you watch Iron Man, Thor, and Cap, they've got 3 movies. They have enough character development, or so you think. And then when you watch this movie, you realize there's way more to them. And I really appreciate that, whether it be, Tony's ambition to end this. Because he's had this thing plague him for years, and he's got like this unrelenting driving force behind his character to where when his arc completes at the end, it's like, that was really satisfying on many emotional levels, and I like that a lot. Thor really surprised me because if you guys have seen Thor Ragnarok, without spoiling anything, this guy's lost everything. Like, he has nothing left, including his own weapon. And so there was a specific scene between him and another Avenger that got me. Because up until this point, the God of Thunder, he's very old, kind of invincible, and it's like there's a lot going on thematically with his family and stuff, but how is Thor post all that? And there was one particular scene that even got me a second time that I started tearing up because I really felt the actual core of his character for the first time. I'm not saying that Chris has never done a good job as Thor. He's got charisma and he has strength, but I've never really felt as much of his emotional core as I did in this movie from that one scene where I was like, you know what? I'm completely behind everything that you decide to do from here on out. So he was number 2. And my favorite one. I can't believe this man's going to have 2 big hit movies in the same month. Like, that's incredible. And who am I talking about? Good old Josh Brolin himself as Thanos. What a great character. Because a lot of people, when they watch movies and they're like, oh, that villain, just power hungry, that's all he was, or just so basic and thin, there was really nothing to him. It's how I felt, because there are going to be some comparisons slightly with Justice League, where it's like, first of all, Steppenwolf is a henchman, and second of all, there's really nothing to him. It's just like, I want power, as he was twisting his nipples and mustache. With this one, it's like, yes, he wants power, and then we finally figure out what he wants and how we can empathize with them. Those are the best written villains. The ones that don't know that they're the villain. And that's why I liked Killmonger so much in Black Panther, because Michael B. Jordan, he convinced us that he was making good points as his character. And you're like, wait a minute. I'm actually kind of down for what he's going for. He's just going the wrong way about it. It's the same thing with Thanos. Throughout his whole mission is to get this damn glove to wipe out the universe, or at least half of it. And it's like that's as Joel put it, very Hitler-like. And it's like he wants to have this power and annihilate people, but when you get down to his pathos a little bit, there's a lot more going on, and a lot going on with like him and Gamora and like that relationship that he has with her as his stepdaughter. There's a lot going on there, and when you get to the heart of that and to the heart of what his goals are, there's so much going on within that character. I was just completely mesmerized every single time he was on screen, and every time Josh had a line that he would deliver, or the way he moved and how he felt threatening, but at the same time he almost looked like a giant teddy bear with some of the stuff he was going through. There was just a lot going on with that character, whether it be performance-wise, performance capture-wise, I must say, or dialogue-wise. It was just a fantastically written character, and we'll get into the spoiler section, but let's just say that Thanos, he goes after that glove, hell or high water. Isn't that right, Joel? Yeah, he goes after it with full force. All right, so acting's out of the way. I already mentioned the CGI issues that had a little bit. Some of it looked a little too campy, a little too video gamey. But on the other hand, most of the CGI is pretty damn great, and Thanos has some of the most realistic motion capture work that I've seen since like the Apes films with Andy Serkis, and to a point where like even the second time when I saw it, I saw little hairs on his arms. That was like, I didn't even see that the first time. Like, that's just, it's so meticulous and so precise with the CGI on him. It's like, it's insane. But the CGI on him I really enjoyed, and I even liked the weirdo like space venom dogs that were running at the very end that you see in the trailers with like those creatures running towards them. Like, that was well done. I really enjoyed the way the Black Order looked. Like, Ebony Maw looked creepy as hell in the shadows, and like when you came out of it, the lighting was perfect, and he looked creepy with all the little wrinkles in his face. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's so precise and so direct with its animation that it felt real. Excluding, like I said, a couple scenes that the green screen might not have worked or whatever. But I think for the most part, they've upped their game in the CGI, kind of realm, and it just absolutely just some of it's kind of breathtaking. And let's see. Other than that, I think I nailed mostly everything in a vague way before we get into our actual deep discussion. But Joel, I mean, take it away. Like, start with like the thing that worked best for you, and then just kind of trickle downwards. So I'm really curious as to what was like the one thing that you really appreciated the most.
Thanos. Yep. This character. So I had been worried in the past. I enjoyed his little wordless cameo at the end of the Avengers. I thought that it was cool because, I wasn't a comics guy, but I seem to have. I can remember I saw this movie at an advanced screening, and so I saw before any of the buzz started, because that was the first time it had screened in public, or one of the first times, and so it had the premiere the night before, but nobody was really talking about that stuff because there was a heavy embargo. So I didn't know that there was going to be something that big in the middle of the credits, and so I saw it and I was like, man, I seem to remember that there's this big bad who wipes out a lot of the heroes and everybody has to fight him, but I can't remember his name. So I did research and found out it was Thanos, and I was like, that's really cool. And then Guardians came out and he had this solid little appearance, but I kind of wasn't super impressed at the end of the day, because I felt like, in some way I just felt like this was going to be just this big purple CGI dude that wanted to destroy the universe and all the Avengers, and there wasn't going to be any nuance there. And, whenever he came out in the middle of the Age of Ultron, or after the credits, whatever, and he puts on the glove, I just felt like he was moving in such slow motion that I was like, man, when's this guy going to get here? How long does it take for him to get to Earth? Because that's what I thought was going to happen. But now, I mean, this character he's a tragic character. He's the hero of his story. He believes that everything he's doing is worthy of the incredibly emotional sacrifices that he has to make along the way. But he feels, conflicted about it at least as much as he can be, while also wanting to, destroy everything. But he's such a complex character, and I think that the way that Josh Brolin plays him is so careful. And I heard that basically, I think it was one of the directors or one of the screenwriters or somebody told him, he's sort of like Don Vito Corleone, in that he's kind of this Godfather figure and that gave Brolin the entryway to play the character in this way. And he commands the screen, but he's not doing it in that, twirling the mustache kind of way. He's a leader. You can tell that he's probably got a military past, for instance, on Titan, and he's just this great character that really surprised me as it went on. And but he's also vulnerable. There's a I don't want to say a human side, because he's not a human, but there's a vulnerable side to this character, and I thought that was really surprising. And so that his presence here is the thing that works, that ties everything else together. You have a lot of heroes here. The film spends its time cutting between them a lot, but the glue that holds it together is the fact that Thanos provides a real threat. I mean, he provides a beat down on a lot of these heroes that I think is important to have because, in movies in the previous movies, they almost seem to match the powers of their villains and perhaps slightly, you know, um, uh, slightly surpass their powers. And here, it's like there's no competition. Thanos is stronger than a lot of these heroes are, and so we have that dynamic of, instead of Thanos being their even match, their even match is the children who provide a lot of a threat a threat of their own, and I thought that they worked really well. A couple of them kind of get the short end of the stick. The two big dudes with the gigantic weapons. I don't think you ever hear them talk. Maybe if you do, it's like one line or whatever. But you mostly have Proxima Midnight, who is a really like slinky, snaky presence, and then you have Ebony Maw, who's like this very proper gentleman of a psychopath, who comes from this, whatever planet he comes from, and has a weird like physical look and has those long fingers, kind of like Voldemort's fingers, almost. And he's got this really like insane presence, and I love that about all the characters. I love that they are distinctive from one another for the most part, and I love that. So everything about Thanos, I think, is pretty exceptional, and that's the thing that works really well for me. Getting into the other character storylines, you have Thor. You're right. I mean, without giving anything away, this guy's lost everything, and now he has to kind of fight his way back, and it's insane to think of where he is at the end of this movie, and then you have the fact that, for instance, Iron Man and Captain America hate each other, hate each other, and I won't reveal anything about whether or not they reunite, but it's very much a question. The movie deals with the question of what's going to happen when they do, and then you have there are some characters where they're more functional. Spider-Man just happens to be on a field trip because of course he is. You have to have a contrivance to get him in here. The movie doesn't really do much with Spider-Man. He's certainly along for the ride, and he provides support in terms of logistics and getting people to fight and all that. But he doesn't have much of a role beyond that. Doctor Strange, though, until the end, he's a little bit functional, and then he takes on a very important role. And then, just the heroes' storylines work to get them together. And so you have this relationship between Vision and Scarlet Witch that I thought was really well explored. That was certainly better explored than the random one that they inserted into Age of Ultron between the Hulk and Scarlet and goodness me, Black Widow. And here, you have one that kind of hadn't been established previously, but now is very well established in this one. And then, you have the Guardians of the Galaxy come back in, and we get some moments there that are really nice, particularly surrounding Rocket and Gamora. I think that they are the ones that are put to most use of the group. But you also get some really funny moments between Drax and Mantis, who have developed this kind of interesting back and forth that's really fun to watch here. There's this scene, it's not even a spoiler to say this, but there's a scene where Drax is convinced that he's mastered the art of disappearing into the background. And so, and then Mantis comes in and completely crumbles all of that for him, and it's just a great scene. So you have that as well. There's a lot of moments of humor here that I thought worked really well, and because all the characters have different personalities. So even more than Thor and Captain America. I mean, Iron Man and Captain America coming at loggerheads with each other in the first Avengers. Here it's Iron Man and Doctor Strange. They hate each other. They cannot stand each other, and it's great. And so, anyway, you just get this kind of camaraderie that's built back up. But I do want to say, that this movie uh, spends less time figuring out how to mesh the personalities than the previous two Avengers movies did, because this very much is about their job to defeat Thanos. And so what it does is it takes a very businesslike approach to the gathering of the heroes. Their mission is the most important thing here. So the movie basically uses them to deliver exposition, although thankfully there's not a whole lot of that, to, fight, literally, to be bodies in motion. And to, occasionally bicker, but the bickering isn't so much the focus this time. And so I think that it does a really good job of simplifying for us their jobs and kind of clearing the path for them, at least until the ending, clearing the path for them to pretty much just, do their job. And I did like that. I felt like there was a streamlined quality to that aspect of the narrative that I thought was very appealing. And I mean, it's just a really solid, like, I hate to call it a product because it is very heartfelt, but it's a solid product all around. I mean, it really does streamline everything. And, getting to the specifics about the presentation of this material, cinematography is pretty terrific. Even, when, coming into contact with the backdrops, I think that the green screen work is sometimes pretty poor. But it's a stylish looking movie. It looks very sleek. It's unsurprisingly, shot by the same cinematographer who worked with the Russos on Civil War and Winter Soldier, Trent Opelok. And that doesn't surprise me. It's a very sleek movie. A lot of, I mean, I guess you could say that it kind of looks like a little bit more of an expensive episode of, Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or Arrow, getting into the DC shows or whatever, but it still looks appealing. It's a well-made movie, and it's not going to be winning an Oscar for cinematography anytime soon, but it looks good. The special effects that are not green screen are often pretty impressive, particularly the motion capture work on all the characters who end up being motion captured here, like Thanos and his children, and obviously some of the suit stuff is motion capture aided, with Iron Man suit and Black Panther suit and all that. So that's clearly that's all impressive, and yeah, I mean that's pretty much. I think the score works really well. It's Alan Silvestri, straight, fresh off of Ready Player One, does a really terrific work here, kind of twisting his score, especially in the final act, to be something a little more twisted. And yeah, I mean, and also, we'll get into these later, but there are moments here of singular power where the movie cuts down on the dialogue, it cuts down on all the pomp and circumstance, and it just lets the characters and the emotion do the work. And I think that that's really powerful. And that's something that has come along, especially in Phase 3, a lot. And I like that they are kind of keeping with that, providing us with singular moments of great power. Just, you think of the moment in Guardians 2 where between Rocket and Yondu, in the jail, where Yondu has a few moments to kind of opine about where his life has gone and how it's come to that point. You get kind of similar moments in this movie, and I think that it does a really good job of speaking to the characters' personalities and how they've grown over the course of these movies, and it's just so great. And so yeah, I love this movie, and I think that it knocks it out of the park. It's the little problems or quibbles to me. I think that this is an exceptional movie, and so that's my pretty much my full positives. I think I pretty much just covered what you did. Honestly.
Yeah, I mean,
but
I think the most important thing is when you're building up to this certain event and this certain storyline after 19 movies and 10 years of doing this. I think for the most part, this is about as good as you can get in terms of delivering that type of storyline. Because, the one thing I always give Marvel credit for, even if you don't agree with it, you don't like it, that's fine. Some people aren't into this franchise, I get it. But they set up, a plan. They set up a foil, 6 years ago. They planted literal nuggets of stone throughout all these movies. And leading up to that point, while still having, everyone's separate movies still have, their own little adventures going on. So, for an overall plot that led up to this moment, I got to hand it to him. It was definitely worth the wait. And, I'll go ahead and just say it. As Joel pointed out last week, when a film is an A+. This isn't one of them until I see it again and again and again. But I did feel that this is a solid A film, and I will stick by that. So I will give this movie an A.
Yeah, I'm giving it an A as well. It's one of those things where it's almost about you've experienced it twice, of course, and I've only experienced it once. But my point stands that sometimes with these, the first experience doesn't quite completely sell you on it being an absolutely perfect movie. Plus, I don't think it is a perfect movie. I think it throws a lot at the wall. Some of it doesn't quite stick, but the overall impact of the product, I think is more important than the tiny nitpicks I could have about some specific elements of the the green screens or the so many characters and so much plot and all that. I think that the overall impact of the product is more important than that, and I think to that end, it's an outstanding movie.
Well,
and
I always judge it on within its own genre. So if we're talking about as a superhero movie, did it succeed in what it was trying to go for? Yes, it did, and it did very well. Is it going to succeed in maybe the drama category against other dramas throughout the year? Probably not. But for what it was trying to do, it did it in such an epic way to where it blows the water out of most superhero films. And so that's why we're kind of enamored by this, because it does things unconventionally and conventionally at the same time to where it just works. And a lot of people will assume that people that are fans of this franchise would everything's an A and A+. That's not true. I've only given an A+, or an A- to 3 movies out of the 19. I think for the most part, all these movies are B+ movies, unless you can extend it to make it something special. That's why I was comfortable with giving Civil War that coveted A+, because that handled that movie and that storyline completely different than what I thought it was going to do, and it affected me. Spider-Man, like I said, was one of the best, Spider-Man movies we've ever gotten, and I had to bump it up to that A- for that sheer fact. And then this joins the ranks up there, and I just want people to know that you can be excited about this movie, grade it appropriately, and also review it technically, and have all these, things going at it. I just don't want people, it's the same thing with you with Star Wars. I don't want people to just be we're just going to fanboy out and just be it's the best thing ever. It's this is one of those times, and you guys all know that Joel's not the biggest superhero fan. If he puts it up there, it's good. So I'm just saying that, we're both giving this an A, not because almost everyone else is on the planet. We take this podcast seriously, and we try to give you guys the most accurate, review of what we think of a movie is, and this is an A movie, my friend.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. All right, guys, I'm actually gonna just step away real quick. Chase, if you want to riff or whatever, we're about to start our spoiler section, so I will be back in a second.
Okay, no problem. So yeah, we're about to start our spoiler section. So if you guys want to, get something to drink, something to eat, and get prepared for that, then we will get started here shortly. But please let us know what you guys thought about the movie, and let us know what your grade is. Where does it fall within the MCU? I know I have a couple people I follow on Twitter that didn't like the movie. A lot of them are complaining about, there's really no depth to this movie, and it's just all action, action, action. Hence why it's called Infinity War. but I would beg to differ on two fronts. One, there's enough depth in this movie that will kind of surprise you on a pathos level with most of the characters that does have an emotional core to it. And two, we've had a lot of movies that have built up the relationships of these characters, so we already kind of have a foundation for, stuff like that. So, people's like issues with this movie, it's just, it's kind of amazing. I mean, all film is subjective, and your opinion is just as valid as mine. So I'm curious for people that hate this movie or did not like it. Please let me know down below, because like I said, I do follow people that do not like this movie, and it's fascinating they don't like it. But hey, you can't win them all. I gotta tell you, it's one of the best theater experiences I have had. But I heard Joel come back in. Joel, are you back?
I just got back. Yes.
Perfect. I basically just told our lovely listeners that I have read negative reviews on this movie. I don't fully understand them, and maybe that's something. Because I welcome all opinion. Film is subjective. That's cool. Your opinion is just as valid as mine. I'm just fascinated by people that don't really care for this movie. But I want people to actually list why and not just say it's terrible. It's like, no, you got to give me a little bit more meat than that. Because that is some of the issues that we're going to kind of tackle in the spoiler section. Because I think it's I don't think it's true what these people are saying and why they hate it. But we are going to start it right now, so this is your warning. If you are done with the episode, we will see you guys next week for when we do our summer movie preview episode. But for right now, we are going to jump into the spoiler section, so you have been warned in 3, 2, 1. Here we go. First time that we have ever done this together in a spoiler section. So, Joel, there is a lot to take in. What would you... do you want to start with the ending, or do you want to start with like everything building up to the ending? How would you like to approach this?
Well, I would like to start with the fact. I actually just like to start with the beginning. So, at the beginning of this movie, we mentioned that basically Thor has no one anymore, and I want to say that we mean that literally. So, in the beginning of this movie, which takes place about 5 minutes or maybe 10 minutes after the ending of the mid-credit scene of Thor Ragnarok. We find that the spaceship has come under attack from Thanos and his operatives. And, we see two characters die right off the bat. Heimdall dies because right after sending Hulk to Earth. That's the thing that I was trying to dance around whenever I began the review. Heimdall dies from that. Loki dies because Thanos realizes that he's trying to kind of double cross him regarding the Tesseract, which Loki stole at the end of Thor Ragnarok. And yeah, I mean, it really starts the movie off with a bang because this is, as Thor kind of hints later on, it's his brother and his best friend. And so it basically announces that this movie is not going to be taking any prisoners. And so, later on, so basically let's talk about that. I mean, were you stunned? And also let's talk about this. So this is also the reason that the Hulk, like the big green dude, doesn't show up past this scene, because right before Loki dies and right after Heimdall dies, Loki sicks the Hulk on Thanos, who beats the Hulk to a pulp. Like the Hulk, we spent movies, determining that the Hulk is this gigantically, enormously powerful thing, and he holds his own for about 30 seconds and then literally is knocked out cold by Thanos. And from then on, when he wakes up, the Hulk refuses to come out. And so we get this, for the rest of the movie, we get this point of that, what we previously thought was a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde dynamic is basically not that, because the Hulk has his own kind of his own fears and his own way of thinking. He is a different being than Bruce Banner is. And so talk about that a little bit. Were you stunned by this opening scene?
I was not, only because I'm so ingrained into this universe. I I knew that they were going to start the movie off this way because they have left, Thor Ragnarok to end like that, and I was like, oh, they're going to start out with Thanos coming on the ship, wrecking shop, and killing Loki right off the bat because he has the Tesseract. We saw that in Thor Ragnarok, so this wasn't really a shock to me. I think
they also, by the way, I want to say this, until we see more proof, I'm pretty sure that he also kills Valkyrie and Korg.
Oh, okay, so my girlfriend's got some theories on that one, which I will explain after what I think about it. So there were two things that shocked me. One, they killed Heimdall first. I thought that was interesting that he was the first one to go, like, out of everyone in this movie, and I was like, oh, wow, like, he got to do one last kind of victorious thing before he died. I mean, cool. The Loki thing didn't surprise me. What surprised me was how he died. He got choked the F out, and I felt every squeeze that Thanos was putting on his neck, and it had to do with Tom Hiddleston's face and how he was acting on it, and of course the just the size and scope of Thanos' hands around his neck, and the fact that he cracked his neck, laid him down in front of Thor, which, by the way, he is barricaded from Ebony Maw's, like, metal kind of, like, cage that he has on him. Not only did he lay his dead brother in front of him, he said the line, like, no resurrections this time. It's like, holy shit. Like, Joel's right. Within the first 5 minutes, they aren't taking any prisoners. And just to refute the whole Hulk thing, Joel's completely correct on that point. That's why it works. And a lot of people, one of their first major complaints of this movie is like, why didn't Hulk try to go after Thanos and go after Bat? Why did he have to wait? And it's like, because Loki made him do it. It's like, people look into it before you start squabbling on stuff. And then, what was I going to say? Okay, about the Korg and Valkyrie thing. My girlfriend has a good point. And I believe when they see the ship of Thanos kind of hovering over their ship, I believe, because Thor says this in the movie, he says, half of my people were slaughtered. I believe, and I believe her theory is correct, that when they saw the ship, they had time to get people on pods and get the F out of there. And I believe that probably they were part of that, like, kind of half that were able to get on pods and, like, kind of escape. You know what I'm saying? And maybe, just maybe, in either Avengers 4 or even Guardians 3 for that matter, we might see them run into those characters kind of floating around in space, in pods. So that's kind of her theory. I kind of buy that just because Thor said clearly to the Guardians, I lost half my people. And if that half is really accurate, I think maybe the other half were able to escape in time.
Potentially, but here's the problem.
Yes.
Potentially, but here's the problem. So, while they were probably able to get some people in pods, the ship was destroyed, and I feel like Thanos is, attentive enough that he probably would have just sent them after the pods too.
And you make a good point, and also, I also believe that Wikipedia now, obviously Wikipedia is edited by people who just see this stuff, and I didn't see this, but apparently you can see Valkyrie's body among the pile. I don't know why I don't know why they wouldn't have just gone up to her unless, obviously they'd have to have Tessa Thompson. But still, that's what I think is that it was potential. Maybe not Korg, but I feel like Valkyrie's gone. Yeah, and Korg's a special case because he could have been dead as part of the rubble because he's rocks, and so he could have been just scattered throughout. Rocks. But that's the beautiful thing about this movie. Before we go any further, is that we don't know what's going to happen because of the radical ending. We don't know who is alive and who's dead. Well, we know who's dead, but we don't know people beyond that circle. But the whole Valkyrie
there are deads here that I think are
permanent,
pretty permanent, and
which
I think
is Loki and Heimdall for the start. Yes,
yeah, for the start, yeah, and then I think that overall, I think that there are probably a few in the ending that are going to remain dead.
Correct.
Because I think that we'll get into that later on, but and then obviously we're going to get into this next
Well, and Joel,
So
I like what you're doing. I want you to just kind of like do our spoiler review and just kind of lead the way with all the specific points and just ask my reaction because you actually formatted it in the way I wanted to do. I just you're doing it better, so I'll let you continue.
okay, all right, thank you. So the next one that we really should talk about, and it's really like what we should do with the spoilers is talk about the deaths that occur. That's what we're talking about here because there's a lot of really radical twists. A few of them not involving deaths per se, but this one is, I think, the next really, really big development, which is the fact that so Thanos goes to the planet, what's it called, Vormir or something like that, to try to find the Reality Stone, which was no, I'm sorry, not the Soul Stone, which that's where it's said to be, and so he encounters Red Skull, who is not played by Hugo Weaving this time because Hugo Weaving wouldn't come back. Some other actor.
First of all, that was a big oh shit moment, by the way. I was like, oh wow, that
Yeah,
was like
right?
That was cool.
It's interesting too. Somebody pointed out, and this actually sent chills up my spine. He has now become the man that he originally killed in the opening scene of or whatever his opening scene of Captain America. Remember when he goes into that place and kills the dude that's guarding the stone?
Yeah.
Now he's guarding the stone in the same way. So he's become that guy.
Oh damn. That's
yeah,
really cool.
which is insane. So he encounters Red Skull, who we thought he was destroyed at the end of Captain America. It turns out that his spirit was kind of sent to this place. He guards the Soul Stone, and so Thanos has arrived there with Gamora. And what we learn is that to retrieve the Soul Stone, you have to sacrifice what you love. Now, Gamora gives this very impassioned speech, incredibly well performed. By the way, we should have mentioned this. Zoe Saldana is amazing in this movie.
Yeah, she really steps up, and it makes total sense for the story because she's a part of Thanos' family, and just really kind of elevating her up to like almost the main actress, like the main character.
This scene very much reminded me of the Kylo and Han scene in Force Awakens. Sure. You know, not just the specifics of what's happening, which is a very high up kind of emotional talk between hero and villain that ends with the hero's death. Yes, Gamora dies in this scene. So basically, you have to sacrifice what you love. Gamora gives this very impassioned speech about how Thanos loves nothing, and he proves her wrong by throwing her off of the cliff to her death. We see the death. We see the body. And so I think that is another permanent one. I don't think that that's going to be reversed. And so that's a big thing, too. I mean, this scene is pretty amazing, gotta say. And then Thanos, retrieves the Soul Stone inside this weird, like, existential place that I don't think is real. A lot of people think that it's possible that Gamora is just trapped in the Soul Stone and is alive, but I don't know how she could get out of that. And I'm telling you, like, so many tears. And so you have that kind of mirrored with a scene early on where Gamora and some of the other Guardians go to fight Thanos on the planet Nowhere, where the Collector has hidden the Reality Stone, and through the magic of the stone, Thanos makes them believe that he's torturing the Collector, and so they come out. Gamora believes that she kills him, and then he reveals the truth that actually he's alive. Nothing here is what it seems, and so you then mirror that later on with the fact that he really does kill her, and it's pretty intense. So yeah, I mean, these scenes, I'm telling you, Zoe Saldana's performance is wrenching stuff. I mean, it's tears. It's genuinely like genuine emotion. It starts really when Thor shows up on the ship, when she kind of realizes what's going on. She obviously knows he's probably Asgardian, probably can guess that Thanos involved somehow, and I mean, it's insane. So talk a little bit about this scene. What did you think of it? The actual Gamora's death. I mean, I thought that it was outstandingly handled.
Yeah, it's a potent one, and I will reference The Force Awakens because that's exactly how the scene was set up, to where, I'm going to be honest, I knew it was going to happen. It was like, oh man, Okay, first of all, when you're greeted by something that looks like death, you know something bad's going to happen. And so I was like, the foreshadowing is like, it's palpable. But setting that aside, we're talking about the way it was handled. And the way it was handled was so beautifully because, first of all, you have Gamora, who at first in the scene, she is slightly scared, slightly curious because she, is finding the Soul Stone for the first time. Then she goes into this completely denial state where or not denial, but more like she's kind of laughing in her father's face because, he got what he wanted, but not really. Then she goes into denial because she doesn't know what's really happening, but I think she does. I think she knows something's about to go down with her, but she's kind of like kicking it out of her mind like, oh, you're not going to really do that type of deal. And then grabbing her and throwing her off. And it wasn't just her dying that got me. It was Thanos giving the slight tears kind of coming down because I was thinking about this when we got back to my apartment, my girlfriend and I, because we were talking about it. And get this, I actually think, because the whole thing with the Soul Stone is that you have to sacrifice something that you love. And I believe Thanos didn't have anyone that he ever loved in his life. And so when we see that kind of flashback scene with him stealing Gamora off of her planet, I actually think at that moment he knows about the glove and the stones and that stuff. And so he steals this girl and uses her to become attached to her and manipulate her into having this bond so he could eventually do this down the line. So this is almost like, he stole her for the stone, and then he got too attached. And that's why he knew that what he had to do had to be done, but you knew deep down that he did not want to do that shit. And that's where the complexity comes from. And I don't know if that theory kind of holds up, but I think I'm slightly more in favor of it than you are with her being trapped in the Soul Stone, because from what we see at the end. But then again, my girlfriend has a wonderful theory about the end, but we'll get to that in just a second. But if we're talking about pure execution, whether it be acting, cinematography, which was really well handled, the CGI and the acting, it was really well done. And my favorite part was actually the music. The music was very sweeping, very epic for that moment in time, and I thought it worked really well.
Yeah, it's an outstanding scene. But you know what is the most outstanding scene in the movie? The one that we're about to get to. Because really the next thing that we need to talk about is this ending that we've been hyping up, and
which, by the way, been all the people that saw the screening like on Monday or Tuesday, there were a couple reviews that straight up said, I didn't really care if the movie was fine, but the ending made up for it. Like, when you say stuff like that, that gets me more excited because I'm like, what the hell could this ending be that makes it so, kind of worthy of standing out amongst the rest of the movie? And Joel, please reveal in graphic, depressing detail how this movie ends. Guys, get ready for it because this movie will end and shatter you. And take out your heart, stomp on it, spit on it, and just do whatever it can to just make you feel completely worthless about life.
Yeah, it's an amazing array of twists and really one gigantic reversal of time that is absolutely depressing to watch as it happens, and then this ending. So, all right, so by the end of the movie, we have this big fight that happens. It's kind of two parts. So, one, you have a fight happening on Wakanda, where the Wakandan forces and some of the Avengers they're going head to head against Thanos, the children and the all of their different minions, because they're trying to protect Vision, who is up in the Wakandan tower. Shuri has been given the duty of trying to remove the stone from his head without actually destroying him. So that's the setup to that. And then you have on Titan this big gigantic fight that happens between Thanos and a bunch of Avengers and Guardians, where you have Peter Quill and Peter's Quill and Parker And then Tony in his Iron Man suit. You have Doctor Strange, kind of trying to use his magical weapons, and Mantis and all of these other characters. Drax, who obviously Drax's main goal is to try to kill Thanos, and so you have that kind of coming to a head. But then you have it all come together when Thanos manages to fend off all of the Avengers and Guardians, travel to Earth, and get to Vision, who kind of he's kind of forced out of the building, and then he's gone down into this forest, clearing area, and he's trying to tell Scarlet Witch, who's kind of partly powered by the Mind Stone, to destroy it and destroy him in the process. And she does it. And then Thanos comes in, and he's like, ha ha ha, LOL, you tried. And reverses time, because by that point he's gotten the Time Stone, which Doctor Strange just gives him. Now, why does Doctor Strange just give it to him? I've got to back up a bit.
And I do too, because I am so sick and tired of people complaining about him giving away the Time Stone and Peter Quill basically stopping the only chance they have of getting the damn glove off. And it's because, what does Doctor Strange say, Joel, when he has certain visions? He says it clearly in a line, and that's why everything that happens makes sense, because there was no other possible outcome.
So basically what he does is he's determined that there are 14,605 futures involving Thanos, the fight with Thanos, and only one of them, meaning that only one, literally, the other 14,604 end with their deaths. Only one will they win. So, all right, that means that he gives Thanos the Time Stone. Now, that scene where he does that offers probably the best performance moment for Robert Downey Jr.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, because at this point, the fight has culminated in Tony trying to eject a little sword out of his wrist, and Thanos breaks it off and stabs him with it. So he's got this big, gigantic, gaping wound in the middle of his body, and he's trying to remain, awake and alert, and also is in horrible, horrible agony. And now here in the middle of all that, Doctor Strange gives Thanos the Time Stone. And so, yeah, Thanos goes back to Earth, takes the stone, basically reverses time, uses the Time Stone to reverse time to win, to right before Scarlet Witch destroyed the stone, and he reverses that process, takes the stone out of Vision's head himself, and completely destroys Vision in the process, like removes part of his head, literally. And that means that one is the last one, and he was able to get it. And the Mind Stone, I should say, the one that was on Vision's head, he snaps his fingers, because that's how the glove works, and makes half of everybody in the entire universe disappear. Now that means that part of the people who disappear are the heroes of the movie. So what happens is that there are certain people who stay, and there are certain people who vanish in like powder, essentially. They disintegrate. So the people who disintegrate, and I'm just going to list them off to give you an idea of how freaking wacky this is, include Bucky Barnes, Drax, Groot, Mantis, Maximoff, Wanda Maximoff, Peter Parker, Peter Quill, Doctor Strange, T'Challa was probably the most shocking one, and Sam Wilson, who, and obviously there's an untold number of people. I'm going to list two more once we get to the post-credit scene, but those are the ones that we know about right then. Now, I want to unpack this a little bit, because the ones that remain are Bruce Banner, Tony Stark, Nebula, who is Gamora's adoptive sister, M'Baku and Okoye, who are two lieutenants of the Wakandan army, James Rhodes, Rocket, Steve Rogers, Natasha Romanoff, and Thor. They're the ones who are left. And All right, I want to unpack this a little bit because I'm about to break all of y'all in half who are still with us by reminding you of something. And this is the most depressing thing that I can possibly think of. So I have to flash back to an earlier scene between Thor and Groot. All right. So this actually has two parts of the conversation, even though Thor is the one who talks the most. So Rocket, I'm sorry, did I say Rocket or Groot? I can't remember. Anyway, all right, Thor and Rocket are having a conversation on the Guardians ship. And we get this sense that Thor has lost everybody. At this point, he had just lost Heimdall and Loki. He's already lost his mother and father in previous movies. And actually most of his friends on Asgard were killed by Hela. So although we don't know what happened to Sif, one of his friends, because Jamie Alexander wasn't filming that movie, but we don't know what happened to her. But in any case, we get this idea that he's lost everybody, yet he's remained strong, right? And then we cut back to Rocket, who kind of speaks in an undertone after he leaves, saying, I think I would be lost if I lost most of my people. So now we flash back forward to the end. Right in front of him, Groot disappears.
Don't do it, Joel. I'm going to cry as you talk about it.
Okay. But I'm sorry, I'm going to make you cry even more because elsewhere on Titan, every other one of the Guardians except for Nebula disappear. So he only thinks he's lost Groot.
I know, that's the saddest thing. Oh, damn.
Now, here's the other thing that's depressing. Peter Parker's on Titan. Somebody's going to have to tell Aunt May. Somebody's going to have to tell Pepper, and we don't even know if those two people are remaining.
Yeah, we don't know if they blew into dust or if they survived. Like, that's the cool thing about this ending, is that we don't know who is definitely dusted or not.
Right. And so you also have Okoye's reaction to T'Challa disappearing literally right in front of her as he's touching her. That was absolutely terrifying to watch.
I totally agree. Like we were actually talking about that. We said, who gave the more disturbing, terrified look, and it had to have been when Black Panther went away, because she was so confused. She was she looked like she saw someone get murdered right in front of her, and in cold blood, and the blood splashed on her. It's that was some really damn fine acting.
Yeah, and then you also have, Steve Rogers, oldest friend in the world, Bucky Barnes, disappearing after just getting him back.
I know, he keeps losing the guy.
I know, he keeps losing him. Doctor Strange's parting words of, it was the only way, before he disappears, and that's loaded in itself because he's the one who saw the future. And so he must have come to the realization, oh my gosh, I'm going to be one of the people who dies. And so, you also have to, come to the realization that these people may not remember anything if they come back. And, especially considering the theory that I have that I'll get into later.
Oh, perfect, because I'm about to dish.
Well, okay, but let's keep that pin for a second, because we have to get to the post-credit scene.
That's true. Because
the post-credit scene very much fits into my own theory. And I'm sure that it fits into yours and your girlfriend's. So, all right. So then we get to the post-credit scene, which I completely disagree with Chase about on every aspect of this scene. I think.
Okay, did it not bother you that Samuel L. Jackson said his trademark almost mother effer line, and people in my audience laughed, and it's these people are being dusted away from existence, and you're laughing.
It's a moment of levity that it's providing. I realize that it's during the moment, because so the post credit scene kind of backs up a little bit, a few seconds before some of the stuff in the end, as Nick Fury and Maria Hill, played by of course Samuel L. Jackson and Kobe Smulders, are driving along. They're trying to figure out where Stark is, and then suddenly, a couple of cars crash, and they look inside and don't see anybody, and then in front of Fury, Maria disappears. She disintegrates. She gets turned into dust, and then he immediately, and this is very curious to me, and this is gonna blow everybody's minds when I give my theory. he immediately goes to an old beat up beeper that seems to be slightly more high tech than usual beepers, at least in terms of like 2000 compared to 1996.
Oh, you bastard! I know where you're going with this.
Yeah.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
Yeah. He immediately goes to a beeper and sends out a message, and it sends it to a red and blue star insignia that obviously talks about it's Captain Marvel. So, and that sort of kind of sets up Captain Marvel, even though we don't see Brie Larson. And that whole thing is so loaded to me that I have to. I'm just gonna ask Chase, were you basically sobbing in a fetal position during the entire 5 minutes of this movie both times?
Oh yeah, I can tell you the first time, like exactly like how we felt. I think we both were devastated and our eyes were watery and we were kind of shocked because we didn't know how to react. Second time, I still felt it, and like I held onto her hand so hard that they started to become clammy and like wet, and I was like, that's like pure anxiety because you didn't know the outcome of this movie. When Thanos reversed time and to get the Mind Stone, I was like, oh man, they did a cop out, and I was like, oh, typical Marvel. I want to see how they end this thing. And the fact that they actually went through it and Thanos stuck to his word, he got everything, full force and snapped his damn fingers. That was one of the most brilliant edits I've ever seen in this universe, where like Thor stabs him. He's in such pain.
Oh yeah, and I probably should have told you this. So told everybody this. So at this point, Thor has gone to create a weapon on the spaceship positioned by a dying star that was used to create Mjolnir, his old hammer. And they create a new hammer called, sort of an axe hammer hybrid called Storm Hammer.
Which, by the way, has Teen Groot's arm as the handle. It's awesome.
Yes, yeah, which is awesome. That's a great scene.
The first time you put down the video game.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, that made me laugh every single time when they would cut to him just looking at his game. It's like, that's how we are as teenagers.
Through this thing, Groot is an adolescent, and he is, and then he realizes, oh my gosh, this needs my attention, so I'm just going to cut off my arm. Here you go. It's pretty great. So yeah, go ahead with what you were saying.
No, I was just saying that, oh man, where did I leave off? Because there's a lot that happens, and the edit thing. It was so great when Thor stabbed him. He was in pain. He smiled at him and said, "You should have went for the hand." And as soon as he did that, and the camera went behind.
He says you should have went for the head, because I think that's what would have done it. But
no, exactly, and that's why it's so shocking, because like he's right. It's like if you were gonna kill the guy, you should have went for a headshot. And of course, Thor is not thinking clearly at this point. He's thinking rage, revenge, and so it was so amazing when the camera cut behind him and he snapped his fingers, and you saw the brief like terror in Thor's face before it went completely white, and it went to I believe, and she believes this as well, the Soul Stone. I believe that that little scene that we saw with him talking with, little Gamora, and she was like, "Was it worth it?" I believe that was kind of like the one last final step of the gauntlet of all the stones going, "Are you sure you're cool with this? Like, you just did this." Kind of like almost like a reflective thing. Like the stones were kind of taunting him a little bit, like going, Hey, bitch, you sure you're cool with this type of deal? And then it cuts back to the glove burnt. And I was like, oh my God, he won. He got what he wanted. And then when they started dusting away, I'm telling you, the audience in both of our screenings were dead silent, except for one of them in our second screening. She was hilarious because when Dinklage showed up, she was like, oh man, because I'm assuming she's a Game of Thrones fan. And then the second time was when Bucky was the first one to get dusted, and she was like, like it was so great to like hear a reaction, because we already knew it was coming, but most of the people in our audience didn't. And I think that is what was so effective, because we didn't know the like final last moments of this movie, and the fact that it was so devastating and we didn't know who was going to get dusted at that point, and what does this mean for the universe, and how is this all going to play into Avengers 4, and then when it ends with Thanos walking out on that cliff with his burnt ass glove, smiling, and it just ends in like the most somber, depressing way. I was like, that was such a great ending, because it completely like averts everything we've seen in this universe so far. And Kevin Feige said this best. It's like, listen, we've given you guys almost 20 of these movies. We need to up the stakes, and they upped the stakes. They were very real. Now, I'm gonna let you do your theory, first before I get into my girlfriend's theory, because it kind of makes sense, maybe, but we'll get there. But I think as the overall execution of the ending, it was powerful on many levels because of, one, we didn't know who was getting dusted, and two, the acting from several of the players, whether it be Rocket looking at Groot float away, or Black Panther going away, and having his basically his right hand woman, his most powerful warrior in his kingdom, look shocked. It almost looked like she wasn't strong anymore, and that was her moment of weakness. And we're not used to that because we've seen her as a strong presence. Then
she's unflappable, and that flapped her.
Yeah, it's
if you will.
It's that was crazy. And then I was actually telling her one of my other favorite ones is when Steve, because when Cap comes into this situation, he's not really knowing what's going on. He's just kind of going with the flow because he's still a fugitive in the States. And so when he looks at Vision, who looks like a destroyed beer can at this point, when he looks up and he turns to Thor and he goes, "Thor, what's happening?" That affected me the most because he was confused. We were confused.
I think that actually for me, the three things that affected me most about the whole scene. One, we've already talked about it, but the Groot disappearing in front of Rocket and Rocket going, no. And then also Peter Parker disappearing and asking Tony not to be dead.
Oh, man.
Basically.
Oh, man.
And falling on the ground, and then his actually ended up being slower than everybody else's. It drew it out a little bit. Everybody else kind of seemed to just immediately disappear, and his was more gradual. And then also Captain America leaning, sitting beside the desiccated, I don't want to call it corpse, I guess, but whatever, for Vision, and just saying, "Oh God."
Yeah.
And
that shook him. defeated, utterly defeated, absolutely, completely flabbergasted by everything that was happening, much like we were. And also Fury's look of complete bafflement at Maria Hill disappearing in front of him. Longtime colleagues, obviously good friends, in that way that you can be friends with your colleague, disappearing in front of him. And so this is where I'm going to go into my theory, because I have a really interesting question to ask you, Chase. Interesting. All right, what do you got? Because there's going to be we're going to be speculating on this movie for an entire year, but I think it's important to try to at least theorize as to how they're going to undo this mess, because that's not my immediate pressing question.
Interesting. I'm going to lead up to that.
Okay.
But, and certainly it is a question. But my first question is, why, if you have just watched a bunch of people disintegrate, would you immediately go to somebody through this beeper thing, unless you know that she is not of this time? That's my theory, is that this thing that he used messages back through time. And I believe because he's watching everybody disintegrate. How does he know that she's not disintegrating? It must be because she's still in the 1990s, which is when the Captain Marvel movie is going to take place.
Correct.
And so that's why we're going to be seeing, for instance, we're going to be seeing Ronan the Accuser again. We're going to be seeing, as I call him, Jaimin Hounsou guy again, because I forgot his name.
Who?
Who? We're gonna be seeing. Oh yeah.
The Who guy. That's who.
The Who. And then we're going to be seeing, obviously, Agent Coulson again. We're going to be seeing Nick Fury with both eyes, or as I called him to a friend, both-eyed Nick Fury. And it's because, that one takes place in the 1990s. We know that Captain Marvel, the Carol Danvers Captain Marvel, which is, that's who Brie Larson is playing. We know that she has cosmic awareness, which might include the time part of the space-time continuum, I think. It might be that she might have to, quiet it down a little bit. Otherwise, she's going to be stressed about a lot. But certainly she has cosmic awareness, so it might be that when she receives that report, she searches, in her mind out into the cosmos, out into the space-time, sees what's happening, and understands immediately what she needs to do, which is, find whatever it is that is going to change this.
So are you saying that when he sends the pager signal, we're gonna maybe possibly see that signal reach Captain Marvel's movie, back in time?
Possibly at the end of the movie. I can imagine that the Captain Marvel movie is gonna be a standalone insofar as it has a villain played by Jude Law, I think. Whatever. No, that's her mentor. Anyway, whatever. Some sort of villain. And she gets her powers from the Kree. That's what that movie's going to be about. But I think that probably either at the end of the movie or in one of the post-credit scenes, she receives that message.
And that would be perfect because then the next movie is Avengers 4.
Yeah, and I think that what has happened is what Fury has told her is this thing messages back through time. There's going to be a time in the future when I need you, and it's going to be at the only possible time that I could possibly do that. An extinction level event. That's when I'll need you in the past from the future. And that's what I think is going to happen. I think that we have definitely not seen the last of that. We're obviously going to see the counterpart to that beeper. I'm just going to call it a beeper because I don't know what it's called. And it looked like a beeper to me. So, I think that to some degree, this is going to be a time crossing thing where that's how Captain Marvel comes into it. And of course, she's like 60 times powerful than every other Avenger combined.
She's basically a female Superman.
Yeah, she's Captain Marvel. She's named after the franchise, so it kind of gives you the idea that she's way more powerful. Like she can absorb energy blasts, for instance. So even Thor's lightning blast would just strengthen her. It would have the opposite effect of what he would want if she was a villain of his. So obviously Thanos is strong. Obviously we've covered that in this movie, for instance. But I think that she will have the necessary powers to be able to fight back against him and defeat him ultimately. I think that the ultimate fight is going to be her and Thanos. And everybody else, certainly is going to play a part in it, but I think that the ultimate fight, the person that will defeat him is Captain Marvel. And so that's my theory. And then I think that what she's going to do is she's going to take back the gauntlet. She's going to use it, and everybody else is going to come back to life that disappeared in the cloud of smoke. Maybe not everybody, but enough of them. And I think that this is the plan that Doctor Strange saw. This is not the plan, the future that he saw. Where they win is that they need to briefly, horribly, awfully lose. And certainly they do that at the end of this movie. So that's my theory. What is your theory and your girlfriend's theory?
Well, I don't have a theory.
Is it the same?
Okay. I'm not that smart. No, what she was talking about. Well, because your theory is actually pretty plausible. That's actually not a bad theory because time is going to be a major player because, unfortunately, I'm spoiled and I look at set photos and I saw that for Avengers 4, when they were shooting the last bits of that, there were photos that leaked of Cap in his old uniform. So there's going to be a lot of time travel aspects. To which degree, I have no clue. But I do know that will be a factor. So here's what she was saying. You know how when he snapped his fingers, he immediately went to which we both believe is probably the Soul Stone. Like really kind of reflecting back at him going, all right, are you positive you were fine with doing this? And then, of course, he was like, of course. And it's like, he gets back out into it. What if, because we don't know the extent of the actual like formation of all the stones and how powerful they are. I mean, according to Wong, it's, you know, when the universe exploded and all the little stones. But what if that Mind Stone is a literal thing? And what if that is the mind of the universe and it has a mind of its own? So that's the last stone that he gets. So when he puts it in the glove and it's reunited with all the other stones, what if it has a mind of its own and it can activate the other stones without Thanos' permission? So what if, I don't know how this would play out, but what if the dusting and the destruction that we see leading up to Thanos walking off that cliff and smiling, what if it's all the stones coming together using its mind to trick him through the reality stone, showing what it would be like if he did snap his fingers? So basically putting that Mind Stone in the glove from that point on, the glove is, quote unquote, because I can drop one F-bomb per episode, fucking with him. And what if that glove is messing with his mind, showing him what it would be like, and that would support the whole scene with little Gamora going, was it worth it? Almost like the glove is effing with him, whether it be through the Soul Stone, the Reality Stone, because when you put it together, like, that's the universe. He's holding the universe in his hand, so you can assume that it's way more powerful than Thanos even understands it. And he just thinks that, oh, when I get everything, I'm the end-all being type of deal. What if he doesn't know that? And what if the universe actually does have a mind of its own and is possibly putting this false reality on him, and he actually didn't do anything yet? And that's what we see as the opening to 4, and then maybe we go off on what you said, like the Captain Marvel path or whatever. I also have a separate theory that Adam Warlock might be involved somehow.
Yeah, it did introduce him, and he hasn't come back into it. Certainly, if he comes in,
because he's also like a Superman, like him. And Captain Marvel actually evenly matched.
He's every bit as powerful as Captain Marvel.
So what if we take your theory of Captain Marvel coming after him, and obviously she's gonna be the one to defeat Thanos, because I have a sneaky suspicion they're going to reveal it here in a few months, but the subtitle to 4 is going to be the Infinity Gauntlet. That is what it's going to be called. I'm just throwing it out there. But anyways, what if you have Captain Marvel and Adam Warlock, who are arguably the most powerful beings in this universe, both going after the glove from different people as a directive, whether it be Nick Fury telling Captain Marvel, or, you know, the gold people that created Adam Warlock in Guardians 2 to be like, yo, Adam, go get this glove because we're perfect beings and we need this thing, to where Adam is using his power to get the glove for evil purposes, and Captain Marvel's getting it so people don't snap their fingers.
Might very well be. In which case, we'll have a more even match, because I think that it's potentially possible that Adam Warlock is more powerful than Thanos.
Correct.
And so, if he's more powerful than Thanos, then probably that could very well be.
So
it might be that.
What do you think about the Reality Stone?
It might be that Thanos is defeated well before, like, even the midway point of the next movie.
I'm thinking by the beginning of the movie or the end of the first act, and that's why I think, like, what do you think about that Reality Stone kind of messing with, in theory?
That's interesting. That's an interesting theory. It's curious because they ended on this place, and
correct.
I think that they'd have to do a lot of legwork to convince us of that in the opening scene of the next one. Which
that's one of the drawbacks that I told her. I was like, yeah, but that might make a lot of people angry. You know, if it's kind of like it was like a dream situation. But I mean, if they do it at the beginning of the film, I feel like it would still have impact, rather if they did it at the end of the movie.
Yeah. Which it'll be interesting to see if all of that is the case. Maybe. Yeah, I mean, or it might be that to some degree. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot to unpack in that theory, but it's certainly an interesting one. I can't wait to see how it all turns out. I assume they're going to move this one back a week as well.
I know, right? Just because people are highly anticipating.
It would just make sense to April 26th or whatever it is. And let me see, because I'm actually not entirely sure what it would be. 2019. See, it's May 3rd, so it would be the 26th.
Okay.
Probably be the 26th. I wouldn't be surprised if around the time Captain Marvel comes out, they announce it, because that's when they announced it last time. So yeah, really interesting stuff all around. It's a ballsy ending because this could have been a Hobbit situation where, I was telling this to Chase on the phone the other day. With The Hobbit, the third movie opened with what should have been the climax of the second one with the death of
that made me
Smaug. And,
so angry.
yeah, where it like builds it up and then within 5 minutes he's gone, and it's
I know, right?
and so this could have been the beginning of the next one, and it wouldn't have been nearly as ballsy. It would have been a ballsy beginning, but there's a difference between a ballsy opening and a ballsy closing.
Correct.
And
it's about how you leave the theater.
Yeah, exactly. So, in any case, guys, let's get into our top 10. I mean, our top 5 of the box office. This is the part that Chase has been waiting 10 years to find out. I'm sorry, Chase, for making you wait this long. But I'm actually going to be a bit of a butthole and still make you wait a little bit. So here's the I'm gonna have you guess now, of course, but I'm gonna build up to this, the reveal of the totals for some movies here. So I'm gonna have you guess. So guess what the top 5 are from 5 to 1.
My brain is so melted from watching this movie twice. I can't even comprehend that right now. I obviously Avengers 1. For number 2, I mean, because they've been neck and neck for the past couple weeks. I'm gonna say number 2, A Quiet Place. 3, Rampage. 4. God, what has come out?
Movie you forgot about that you saw and reviewed. And
is it Truth or Dare?
No. Well, no. The other one, that you saw and reviewed and forgot about.
And it came out this month.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. He really doesn't remember it.
Oh, is it? Oh, I Feel Pretty.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, well, there's a reason why I forgot about that movie. Okay, so I guess
that's 4 movies so far.
Okay, so I Feel Pretty at 4, and then I don't even know what. You know what? Maybe the curveball is Black Panther. Maybe the sales surged it to top 5. I don't know. Joel, tell me I'm wrong.
Wow. Okay, I never thought that you would guess Black Panther, but yes, it. So jumping up from number 8 to number 5 is Black Panther with 4.4 million. You actually got that right.
That's awesome.
And then
I knew it.
You only switched 2 other ones. So
No!
So dropping from number 2 to number 4 is Rampage with 7.1 million. That's a total gross of 77.9 million on a $120 million budget, which they're kind of struggling. But not worldwide, because I think it's like at 230 or something.
It's doing
334.6. So I guess doing pretty well, at least overseas. Staying at number 3 is I Feel Pretty with 8.1 million. It's made 29.6 overall on a $32 million budget. It's going to do really well on streaming. And then number 2, Quiet Place with 10.7 million for a total gross domestically of 148.2 and worldwide of 235.4, which it's on a $17 million budget. No wonder they just announced the sequel. Because they have the money for it. All right, guys.
Paramount's also got nothing else going on right now.
Right.
Their studio is tanking. Anyways, sorry.
All right, so guys, I'm going to delay the number 1. Obviously, the number 1 is Avengers Infinity War, but I'm going to build up to the totals, both domestic and worldwide.
Of course you are.
Yes. So what I'm going to do is actually maybe I won't delay the domestic total, but I do want to say that it has made, as of the opening weekend, I'm going to go through and count. Hold on 1 second. Just give me 1 second. So,
I mean, just teasing me. It's almost like he came to my living room or my bedroom, ripped off my shirt, twisted my nipples in a tease, and just left. Like just some type of nipple hobbit, just like twist nipples and leaves. He's just teasing me. This is all he's doing right now. Like he says he's looking up numbers, but he's just drawing this out as long as he can.
All right.
Joel, did you die from
Guys.
your research?
So, Avengers Infinity War, in its opening weekend domestically, has already made more than the entire domestic totals of 6 other MCU movies. Not combined, obviously, but separately speaking.
Wow.
With $250 million. Okay. Now that's pretty big. Obviously, it's the biggest opening weekend of all time.
Yeah, obviously that is the record holder, as The Force Awakens up to with like 247, right?
Right. Yeah, it's very close, but it's like I think it's like a $2 or $3 million gap. Yeah.
So basically, Disney wins. It's
all
both
right.
from Disney.
Disney even further wins because in its opening weekend, worldwide, and I'm gonna go through and count again. Hold on one second.
Well, because I guess just to throw this little fact out there, isn't the highest grossing worldwide opening weekend movie Fate of the Furious, right? With like 800 million plus, right?
No.
Before you reveal this to me,
I don't think it was the opening weekend. It might have been. Hold on.
I was reading that one of the Furious films was the highest grossing opening weekend worldwide, and it was like I don't think it was 800, it was like 700 something. It was a massive number.
Still counting, guys. Sorry.
Joel is a wizard with the math skills. You guys don't know this, but he's just really good at math.
Worldwide, it's in the opening weekend beat the worldwide totals the entirety of the totals for 5 of the movies.
Oh wow!
With $630 million. Yeah,
that's a lot.
So it's insane. Yeah, let me see. Okay, yeah, it is the second largest. So Fate of the Furious opened. Well, I guess I don't know if I'd be able to find out that, but anyway, maybe right here. Let's see. Opening weekend.
So Vin Diesel is a part of 2 of the highest grossing movies opening weekend worldwide of all time. That's nuts.
Yeah, it's insane.
Vin Diesel.
But yeah, so because I actually opened all of the multiple windows and multiple tabs of all of the movies in the MCU, and I just went through and counted, like, based on the totals, which ones were the entire worldwide total less than this one.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, 630 million worldwide already, and 250 million domestically. It's insane.
In 3.5 days, folks. 3.5
3 and a half days. It
wow.
takes movies regularly months to meet something like 630.
Yeah.
That's worldwide.
Impressive.
Yeah, it's insane. And
did you check out the budget? I looked on a Wikipedia article, and I don't know. Once again, guys, Wikipedia is always just like, you can't trust it fully, but I put some stock in it because this is probably around the ballpark. But they say the budget for this one, and probably number 4 as well, because they were shot back to back, is that I think they're around 350 to 400 mil a piece.
Yeah, I'm hearing a rumor that it's something like 375 or 380.
Okay.
And so, which would make sense. And that's just the base budget. That's not including...
That's the production budget.
Yeah, that's the production budget. And honestly, like, worldwide, they've almost completely broken even already.
I know, that's great. Without marketing or any of that,
without marketing, which, of course, crazy. Marketing is probably about $150 million.
Oh, God. You could probably slap... I would even go as far as saying like a 200 mil price tag on that.
Yeah,
like
probably so.
The marketing behind these movies is insane.
They milked it. I mean, it was advertising everywhere. So yeah, I mean, it's an insanely impressive debut. Obviously the biggest domestic opener of all time, the second biggest worldwide opener of all time. And so, when we were saying like this probably won't beat Black Panther, I don't know. It might.
I think it might now. And that was only because, one, of the length. It is longer, so it's less movie times in theaters. And 2, it's a very heavy movie to where I've seen it twice, and I'm going to be honest with you, I'm going to watch it multiple times. But I don't know how many more times other people will want to see it just because it's so devastating at the end.
Yeah. which definitely is not the case with me. I'm with you.
Right.
I'm gonna be watching this a bunch of times, but it's gonna be interesting because you were talking while I was away for the minute or two about the negative reviews, and our good friend Mark was one of them. Although it wasn't really negative, just kind of he felt that there was too much going on. So needless to say, this is gonna be a really interesting top 10 episode at the end of the year when
Yeah.
when this inevitably shows up on both of our lists, and then he's just like, I thought it was okay.
And I'll be like, Mark, you're wrong, even though you get paid to do this and we don't. Don't listen to us.
We'll briefly mute him from the conversation, and then
Hey, Mark, keep on talking. Mute. Oh, interesting conversation. Oh, sorry, guys. Technical glitch on Mark's side. Moving on.
Exactly. So, in any case, that's pretty much it, guys. I don't think that there were any big, like, huge drops. I know that Super Troopers 2 dropped like almost 80%, even though it added theaters, which is pretty depressing for the fans of that.
That's expected for that movie, just because, I mean, when you talk about a movie that gained most of its, or actually all of its money on Kickstarter, all the people that paid to see it through Kickstarter have already seen it, and no one else
pretty
can
much.
see it.
Yeah, it's pretty much like fed the that audience and nobody else.
Which I'm a part of the audience, by the way, proudly.
That was pretty much the biggest thing that happened. I'm pretty sure there were a couple of other interesting rises, but they're movies that I haven't heard of, so it wasn't really something that I wanted to talk about. But yeah, it's pretty much aside from Avengers, kind of blowing everything else out of the water. Kind of an uninteresting week for everything else. So, because obviously it was swallowed up. But yeah, that's the box office, and we'll see what happens when Deadpool 2 opens, because that's obviously going to be a pretty big opener too.
That's the first film to threaten Avengers, not only opening weekend but worldwide and all that stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much, like, it's going to be interesting to see if Deadpool 2 takes away the number one spot, because we've got 2 empty weeks where people are going to see it, and it may be that they just kind of ride the coattails and still see it a bunch of times in the opening weekend of Deadpool 2. But yeah, we'll see. Whatever it'll be, it's going to star Josh Brolin as the villain.
I know, right? It's like Josh Brolin just having a good month.
And then Solo might actually be like, in terms of the movies that are going to be probably number one, it might be the least of them, which is so weird to me.
I hope people realize that we have a very interesting scenario. Just real quick, because this actually goes into one of the spoiler scenes. We have Thanos putting his foot on the Collector's chest, and of course that was all a mirage and with the Reality Stone. But I was thinking, like, when he was talking to the Collector, I was like, oh my God, is this a precursor to Sicario 2? And so I thought of this, I thought of this interesting scenario that when Sicario 2 comes out, Josh Brolin's going to have 3 movies in theaters, like, simultaneously.
Two of them with Benicio del Toro.
Yeah, that blows my mind.
Yeah, that's insane. I wonder how he must be feeling. Like,
he's probably over the moon right now.
He was on Kimmel during the whole Avengers week this week or last week, whatever. And now, he's probably going to be turning back around doing Deadpool, and then I'm sure that Sicario 2 will at least get a little bit of press stuff. Not as much as the others, of course, but
you're gonna have those asshole reporters that ask nothing but Avengers questions. Like, fam, you're here for Sicario 2. Calm down.
Exactly. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. I love Brolin, so I'm down for that. I think he's a great actor, and yeah, so it's interesting.
A long way up from the Goonies.
Right. Also, just a reminder to everybody, the 2 main stars of No Country for Old Men have now been part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Tommy Lee Jones in the first Captain America, and now Josh Brolin as Thanos. So now they need to get Javier Bardem in there, and yeah, that would be awesome.
That'd be great. But yeah, that's the box office, guys. Very interesting weekend indeed, and I can't believe Avengers made that much within 3.5 days. Because Thursday, I remember reading the report, Thursday night opening was like 47 million, which is insane for a Thursday night movie. So yeah, good on it. We knew it was going to blow open the doors, but we did not know it would hold now the number one spot for opening weekend all time domestically, what the hell? We live in this world, folks, where literally the first place is 250 and the second place is 247. Like, let that sink in. That just, whatever.
It's crazy. Now, I want to disillusion everybody else. This movie's not going to make Force Awakens money.
No, it's not.
No, it's not, because Force Awakens was unprecedented, and that's more than $1 billion more than the second place, which is it still Titanic? I mean, Avatar. It's still Avatar, right?
Yeah, Avatar is still the number one worldwide, and then Force Awakens is domestically alone.
Oh, okay. All right. So yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Domestic money, nothing else is going to do what Force Awakens did.
Well, I think the more interesting race that we're going to see is how far Avengers can go, and like how far is it going to dethrone Black Panther domestically and worldwide, and how well it will do on its own. So that's the race I'm kind of looking forward to, is basically cannibalism. Like how well is it going to cannibalize its other movies? So, but yeah,
how well is Marvel going to defeat Marvel?
Yeah, it's going to be great. But yeah, so that will do it for the box office, guys, and that will do it for this week's episode for 228. And I alluded to earlier that for episode 229 for next week, we are going to be doing the summer movie preview, which means we're going to be going over movies in May, June, and July. And then we're going to be joined by Graham, who's been on the show before. And if he doesn't...
Well, and August, but like nothing comes out in August. So I get why you didn't even list August.
August isn't even a month anymore. But you know what's really funny is that like a lot of good movies have come out in August. I'm not, downing it, but
it's just this August is empty.
Yeah, the bulk of the summer movie season is those 3 months, basically when you are out of school. So
yes,
so that's what we'll be doing next week. We're actually pre-recording it on Thursday, but I might just throw you a curveball and just probably do it live on Thursday, and you guys can have it early. That's what I was thinking. We'll see, but obviously I don't listen to what Joel says. I just do whatever I want. No, I'm just kidding. We'll talk about it, and we'll see if we'll pre-record it or live it. But Graham is actually in the chat right now. He said looking forward to it, so that is what we're doing. But yeah, so next week summer movie preview. The following week will be the coverage of the Dallas International Film Festival, and then of course the following weekend will be Deadpool 2 as the primary review, and then the next weekend obviously Joel will get to cream his pants once again for Solo, a Star Wars story, so that will be fun, good stuff. But before we head out, Joel, where can the lovely people find you online?
You can find my writing at joelonfilm.com. I obviously have a review of Avengers up there, and I also reviewed Kings, which is the really lame
it's awful, by the way.
It's really bad. The sort of kind of Rodney King drama that's not actually a Rodney King drama, with Halle Berry and Daniel Craig, and that one is terrible. One of the worst movies of the year so far. Those are the only two that I reviewed this week, but I got a bunch coming up, obviously, with the festival, and then May releases are there's a bunch of May releases this year, so I'll be seeing a lot of those. And you can find my writing there or at dallasmoviescreenings.com. That's where I joint reviewed Kings this weekend with Chase. And then you can follow me on Twitter at Real Joel Copling, and on Letterboxd at J Copling. So that's my internet footprint.
Yeah, if you guys want to follow me on Twitter, it's at Real Chasely. Subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can get other movie reviews that I don't do on this show. Like Joel said, we did Kings this week, and then also I did a film from Sony Pictures Classic, which I actually kind of liked. It was a solid film. The Writer, which is based on a true story. Go check out that review on there. And then, of course, for this podcast, whether it be iTunes, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, wherever you're listening to this, please spread this around. Let people know this is the Definitive Movie Podcast, and this is where you go for all your movie goodness. And, we're going to be continuing that movie goodness next week by geeking out over several movies. So we will see you guys next week for another episode of Real Me and Colin, a movie podcast. And if you listen to this entire thing and you enjoyed it, hopefully we convinced you to be a movie fan and to have you join the Real Me In community. It is a fun group to be a part of. So we will see you guys next week. That is Joel over there. I'm Chase. And next week, summer movie preview. And let us know about the Avengers down below. Peace out.
Bye-bye.